Chapter 164. Don't be angry. I heard from an insider that because of this incident, Tongning has been used by Cheng Tian's CEO as a pretext and has been frozen internally. I heard that because of this incident, the resources that Tongning previously negotiated have all been split evenly. She doesn't have the strength to compete with you right now. Ling Feng's manager sat down beside Ling Feng and explained everything he had heard without missing a single word. Is what you're saying true? Ling Feng tilted his head back and drank his wine before sitting down on the sofa behind him. Have you confirmed it? I've basically confirmed it. Ling Feng put down his glass of wine and laughed. Let that bitch compete with me. But Cheng Tian just signed Tongning. How did things get to this point? Cheng Tian's internal strife is something that outsiders like you can't understand. Afterwards, Ling Feng's manager patted him on the shoulder. So don't waste your time trying to compete with Tongning. Right now, she is nothing more than a street rat. Ling Feng was extremely excited. Ignoring his manager's advice, he pulled out his phone and sent a message. Ha ha ha, I heard Tongning has been frozen by Cheng Tian. Tongning had been frozen. Did Ling Feng hate Tongning so much that he had gone crazy? The reporters couldn't understand why Cheng Tian had signed Tongning in such a grand manner. How could they slap themselves in the face so quickly? However, since this matter had come from Ling Feng's mouth, the media felt it was necessary to investigate further. So they directly made a phone call to Cheng Tian's CEO's office. Lan Shi simply wanted to deal with Tongning in peace. She didn't want the matter to blow up. But she never expected Ling Feng to expose this matter. She was going to freeze Tongning. She didn't want the public to know that she was pressuring Tongning, because she had already lost her value. Above all, she didn't want the public to know that she was burning the bridge after crossing the river and throwing it away after using it. It turned out, deep down, she knew that her actions were shameless and shameful. After all, simply because Ling Feng had replaced Tongning, the reason for freezing her was too weak and far-fetched. Most importantly, she never expected Tongning to retaliate. Even if this person was her, Tongning would never back down. Right now, there are rumors going around that Cheng Tian Entertainment has already frozen you. There are even a few rumors that Li Danny has already taken over your job. The public are all guessing that your luck has run out. For a 26-year-old model to be able to come to Cheng Tian Entertainment, that's already not bad. And Zihao flipped through the computer in his hands and looked at the comments online. He couldn't help but sneer. However, it must be said that that idiot Ling Feng has helped us greatly. Originally, Zihao wanted to expose this incident to the public and let the public keep an eye on Lan Shi. But if he did that, both sides would suffer. But now, Ling Feng actually took the initiative to give them such a huge gift. If they still didn't accept it, wouldn't they be letting down Ling Feng's kind intentions? Tongning sat in the van flipping through the latest issue of a magazine. The smile on her face did not diminish in the slightest. He probably thinks this is a joke, but he doesn't know that Lan Shi is too afraid to admit it. Of course, that is if Lan Shi still wants to keep her face. Why must you see Lan Shi? And Zihao felt there was no longer a need for Tongning to see Lan Shi. I'm not the one that wants to see Lan Shi. Lan Shi wants to see me, Tongning corrected. What I'm saying is you don't have to agree. Let's see her. Who knows, she might regret it. Even if you don't see her regretful expression today, you will definitely see it in the future, Tongning said with a deeper meaning. And Zihao closed his laptop and did not say another word. After quite some time, he finally asked, did President Mo really not invite you to Hairue? Tongning, be honest with me. Of course, but I'm not qualified. Tongning replied straightforwardly. And Zihao pointed to Tongning. He truly felt sorry for her. She had missed out on such a great opportunity. Half an hour later, the three finally arrived at Cheng Tian Entertainment. A large group of reporters swarmed towards them, but Long Jie and Zihao immediately acted as a human shield for Tongning and opened up a path for her to enter the building. Lan Shi's secretary was already waiting at the entrance. As soon as she saw Tongning, she immediately called her to the meeting room. Tongning secretly furrowed her brows as she led Zihao and Long Jie to the meeting room. However, after opening the door, not only did she see Lan Shi, She also saw Li Danny and another international model from Chengtian, Hua Yuan. The woman seemed to have noticed Tang Ning as she looked at her meaningfully. It seemed she had something to say, but Lan Shi was present. Tang Ning could sense that it was kindness. So she nodded her head at the woman. She was a woman of foreign descent with short hair. Although her facial features weren't stunning, they were well defined and had a strong personal style. It was no wonder she was able to enter the international runway. Tang Ning, sit, Lan Shi said coldly. The reason why I asked Danny and Hua Yuan to come today is because I want you to get to know each other. However, I can restore your job, but you need to control your personality. What about my personality has made President Lan unhappy? Tang Ning asked straightforwardly. If you were half as obedient as they are, you wouldn't be in so much trouble. Lan Shi replied coldly. To put it bluntly, you are a sign model of Chengtian. Your future is in my hands. I simply hope you can be obedient and cooperate with the agency. What's wrong with more? She felt Tang Ning was being too arrogant. Fine, I won't argue with you. I just want to ask you, do you still want to become an international supermodel? At least you know I won't compromise, right? The only reason why you asked them to come here is because you want to force me to withdraw. And they can be your witnesses. Tang Ning exposed Lan Shi's plan. Hearing this, Lan Shi suddenly stopped holding back. She looked at Tang Ning and said, your resources have already been taken over by Hua Yuan and Danny. What else can you do? Plus, you guessed it right, I am indeed trying to force you to withdraw. Because Lan Shi wanted to save face. She had no choice but to make Tang Ning the traitor. You will come and beg me not to withdraw. Tang Ning was silent for a few seconds as she looked at Lan Shi. This was the only answer she could give. Lan Shi, you will definitely pay for what you've done today. Hearing this, Li Danny was dumbfounded. Of course, Hua Yuan was also dumbfounded. No one had ever dared to speak to Lan Shi like this. Tang Ning was indeed the first model to confidently and crazily tell Lan Shi that she would regret it. The shape of Li Danny's mouth was like, is Tang Ning crazy? Chapter 165. Lan Shi looked at Tang Ning with ridicule. She even shifted her crossed legs in a flirtatious manner. It was as if she was silently rebuking. Do you think a model like you can make me regret? I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Li Danny also looked at Tang Ning with ridicule. Meanwhile, Hua Yuan looked at Tang Ning nervously. In front of Lan Shi, Hua Yuan was really worried for her. From now on, did she really not plan to continue working in Chengtian and the industry? In that case, I will wait and see how you will make me regret. Originally, I gave all your resources to Danny and Hua Yuan. Originally, I wanted to compensate you, but it seems I don't need it anymore. Tang Ning gave a slight smile. She did not look like Lan Shi expected. Instead, she remained calm and unperturbed. In that case, President Lan, if there's nothing else, I will head home first. If you want to stay and listen to how they take over your job, I have no objections. Lan Shi said coldly as she looked away. Tang Ning did not feel any discomfort from these harsh words. She simply turned around and looked at Lan Shi with a deeper meaning. At least, when she signed with Chengtian, she entered with hope. At least, she once trusted Lan Shi. And Zihao had been waiting at the door. As soon as he saw Tang Ning walk out, he immediately approached and asked, "What did you say? Haven't you already investigated everything that happened?" Tang Ning asked Zihao. She was sure Zihao had already asked the staff at Chengtian. Has Lan Shi really gone overboard with you? I'm afraid she's going to go even further, Tang Ning replied. Although her voice was calm, there was a hint of bitterness in it. I just want to get what I deserve. I don't steal or snatch. I rely on my own abilities. But why is it so difficult? That's true. Even my fiancé could turn into someone else's. What's so strange about a friend turning into a natural enemy? After hearing Tang Ning's words, Zihao had no way of refuting her. He understood the pain of being betrayed by a friend. Zihao, you are in for a bad time because I threatened Lan Shi. That wasn't a threat. You never say anything you're not confident in and never do anything you're not confident in. And Zihao looked at Tongning firmly. He had faith in her. Banned internally? Could it be that they couldn't break out of the encirclement? And Zihao looked at Tongning's smooth and comfortable side profile in disbelief. To make Tongning feel better, he contacted Lu Che and passed the message to Mo Ting. Meanwhile, after Mo Ting found out what had happened, his gaze turned cold and sharp. Especially Lu Che. He had never seen his CEO reveal such an expression. Before Mo Ting met Tongning, he had never placed Cheng Tian in his eyes, let alone cared about their provocations. But now Lan Shi was stepping on his beloved. She was stepping on his baby. In fact, when he first sent Tongning to Cheng Tian, it was to give her a way out. Who would have thought he had actually sent Tongning to hell? Lan Shi. But according to Tongning's personality, if she wasn't completely hurt, she wouldn't give up on any hope. If Lan Shi could really send Tongning to his side, to Hai Rui he could endure for a few more days. 7 p.m. Mo Ting returned home on time. Seeing Tongning sleeping soundly on the sofa in the living room, he couldn't help but remove his jacket and place it on her. It was only at times like this that he could see Tongning's delicate side. A side that needed protection. Tongning wasn't forcing herself. As a person, especially as a woman, she simply wanted a satisfying job and a happy family. She didn't want to reap without sowing, she simply wanted to be steady. But the experiences she had gone through along the way were as heavy as lead. His heart ached. Perhaps she felt his burning gaze. Tongning slowly opened her eyes. As her gaze met Mo Ting's, she smiled sweetly. You're back. You're about to lose your modeling career. How can you still smile? Nope. Tongning sat up and hooked one arm around Mo Ting's neck as she pointed to her head. Who knows, I might be able to make a comeback tomorrow. Ting. You need to have confidence in me. Mo Ting pulled her into his embrace and placed his chin on her forehead. But I'm worried. I'm getting more and more worried. I can't stand by and watch you get bullied. So, as long as you allow me to, I will be the blade in your hand. I will be your weapon. Some people want to use you, but you won't let them. Some people want to use you, but you won't let them. Did you think, without you backing me up, I would risk everything on one throw? Tongning asked in seriousness. No matter how independent I am, you are still my only support. Because my happiness depends on you. Mo Ting's vanity was satisfied. He finally hugged Tongning without saying another word as he quietly enjoyed the peace. Lan Shi wanted to do something behind his back. But how could a person with strong willpower be blacklisted? The next morning, Ling Feng's fans clamored loudly, because LM was about to release highlights from the shoot. They wanted to know, why did the director replace Ling Feng? What kind of actor did they find? He actually dared to take on Ling Feng's stall. Hey, the fans are quite supportive, Ling Feng's manager said to Ling Feng as he sipped his coffee. They are all waiting to see who it is that will help you get back at them. Ling Feng tidied himself up neatly. As he was about to head to the agency to discuss his new film, every time he thought about the highlights LM was going to release, his expression turned into one of disdain. What's so special about something like this? Let them do what they want. I used to hate brainless fans, but now I feel they have some use. Be careful what you say, his manager reminded. Did I say anything wrong? Those idiots believe everything I say. They even went to pick a fight with Tongning. Ling Feng's manager couldn't stop Ling Feng from speaking his mind. Of course, the drama they were waiting to see was the man that was filming the commercial with Tongning. They could only wait to be ridiculed. Meanwhile, Tongning was in the CEO's office at Hai Rui. She sat on the sofa watching LM's activities. In reality, she was a little nervous. Firstly, this was the first time she and Mo Ting had appeared in front of the public. They were going to be shown to the entire nation. Secondly, would anyone recognize Mo Ting? A few meters away, Mo Ting was sitting at his desk flipping through some documents with a serious expression. He didn't seem to care at all. 10:30 p.m., the agreed time had arrived. As expected, LM released the highlights as soon as possible. Chapter 166. Tongning opened the clip to have a look. It had only been 30 seconds. It turned out, When she and Mo Ting were filming the commercial, this was the expression she had on her face. She trusted him wholeheartedly and was filled with love. It was as if she had forgotten about the world. Yet her eyes were filled with attachment towards him. Even she felt her face turn red. Of course, in the video, Mo Ting's back was always shown. But LM used the final scene they filmed, the one where they were holding hands and Tongning was leaning on Mo Ting's shoulder. It was breathtakingly beautiful because emotions were too moving. LM even used this photo as a promotional image for their wedding ring collection. It was turned into a giant poster and light box. At the same time, it was placed in various shopping malls. All of a sudden, Ziheo's phone was bombarded with calls from all sorts of different identities. They were either asking about Tongning's schedule, asking about the male model in the back, or asking about the two of them appearing on the front cover of a magazine together, or on the runway. At this moment, Ziheo was at home. He had no idea that a clip released by LM could cause such a stir. So he quickly pulled out his computer and looked at it. Although he had already seen the clip once during the filming at the resort, after seeing the interaction between Tongning and Mo Ting on the screen, he finally understood why a short 30 seconds of footage could attract so much attention. This was because this commercial could arouse the emotions deep in one's heart. After seeing it, one would feel satisfied and happy. This was the message LM wanted to convey. Marriage was not a grave. The internet was filled with cheers. Oh my God. Even if I knew this was a commercial, I would still willingly accept it. Just watching the clip is so beautiful. LM, hurry up and release the commercial. This is the first time I've fallen in love with a commercial. I've only repeated it 20 to 30 times. Tongning is so beautiful. Appraisal complete. Especially her eyes. They are so clear you can see through her soul. The most important thing is this back. Who is this man? I want to explode. This man is too charismatic. He is dignified, mature and full of manliness. Why are we only showing his back? I am going to become a fan of his back. To be honest, Ling Feng's fans, please don't hit me. Even if it's just his back, based on the aura of this male model, from head to toe, your Ling Feng cannot be compared. He's so handsome. Luckily, it's not Ling Feng. I'm about to get married. After seeing this advertisement, I decisively bought their ring. I hope I can live happily ever after. Please take a peek at the back view of my dream man. No one expected after a simple commercial highlight, Tongning and the back view dream man would become the hottest topic. As for Ling Feng, he would only be mentioned when the fans were mocking him or making comparisons. The fans were originally furious, but when they saw the highlights of the commercial, they couldn't say anything. They couldn't find a single flaw in the commercial, and couldn't find anything to complain about. In terms of height, Ling Feng only reached the other party's forehead. In terms of physique, Ling Feng was like a chicken compared to the other party. Temperament, that domineering aura of a monarch, completely outshone Ling Feng by 500 streets. Of course, other than not being able to see his face, that was the only regret. The arrogance of Ling Feng's fans had dissipated. Some of the fans who were obsessed with his figure had even climbed the wall to fall in love with the back view of the dream man. They directly abandoned Ling Feng halfway there. As for the topic, luckily, Ling Feng was replaced. It also appeared on the top of the search rankings. Of course, the comments were surprisingly consistent. Ling Feng is a piece of trash. If I had such a good resource like the Backview Dream Man in front of me, I would replace him even if I was the director. That's right, I can't agree more. At first, Ling Feng was in a meeting at his agency, so he didn't receive any first-hand news. But after his meeting, he lazily stretched out his hand towards his manager for his phone. His manager was a little hesitant. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you giving it to me? His manager looked at Ling Feng hesitantly before obediently handing over his phone. Ling Feng's expression was originally one of ridicule. In fact, he even had a cynical expression as he placed his legs on the glass coffee table and swung them around. But after seeing the highlights, his expression changed. Especially after seeing the comments online, he was so angry that he smashed the phone in his hand. Who is this? Ling Feng asked his manager as he pointed to the smashed phone. Who is this man? His manager shook his head. More handsome than me? Are these people blind? His manager thought to himself. You are the one that is blind. It wasn't just him, the manager, who was siding with an outsider. Just from the background of the man in the advertisement, one could tell how perfect he was. Compared to Ling Feng, he was miles apart. Everyone could see the difference. Only he himself felt that he was invincible. All in all, the tides have turned. Everyone is praising the director's foresight. He felt that replacing him was a wise move. Of course, his manager didn't have the courage to say the second half of his sentence. However, Ling Feng simply kicked the coffee table and smashed the vase on the table. He couldn't even compare to the man's back. He couldn't even compare to his back. So in one night, Ling Feng lost 400,000 fans. 400,000. His rival agency immediately found a laughingstock and humiliated Ling Feng. The news of the replacement had been blown out of proportion and almost caused Tongning to be torn apart. But what was the result? Even Ling Feng's fans said, "Well done." The wall-crawling fans crazily searched for the man's back. In just one day, they had forgotten who Ling Feng was. They were curious about the mystery behind the man's back. Everyone surrounded the back of this figure and began to dig extensively. They really wanted to know what this man looked like when he turned around. But the fans searched the industry and found all the male celebrities with similar backs. In the end, they discovered that these male celebrities were either too feminine, too muscular, too elegant but not domineering, or too cold. Unlike this man's back, everything was just right. The fans couldn't find the man, so they naturally turned to Tongning and the director. But how could Tongning take the initiative to tell them? In the end, after 2 days of hard work, the fans finally came up with an irresponsible and vague list. Miraculously, Mo Ting was included. This irresponsible list also included people from various professions and even foreign celebrities. Tongning's popularity did not decrease. And because she knew who the man was, she became the subject of interviews from all the major media outlets. They wanted to get some clues from her. Lan Shi watched as Tongning's popularity increased. Her eyes were deep and sinister. She didn't expect Tongning to break out of the encirclement so easily. But did this alone make her kneel down to Tongning? Of course not. This was only the beginning. Chapter 167. LM's commercial was a hit. Not only was it because of the highlights, it was also because of the posters in every major shopping mall. Apart from attracting a large number of newlyweds to buy wedding rings, LM's counter always had groups and groups of fans surrounding the staff with one goal in mind: to find out more about the Backview Dream Man. Who was this person? What was this person's identity? Even a single word would be enough. The staff didn't know whether to laugh or cry as they expressed that this was the first time they had seen this man's back view, and the staff had no idea who he was. Rumor had it that when the Backview Dream Man filmed his commercial, he completely cleared the set. Apart from the director and a few core members, no one knew who he was. At the same time, Tongning's low-key aura also began to shine brightly. Especially her performance in the commercial. Every expression, position and pose was vivid and lifelike, conveying the happiness of a woman into the hearts of the people. As a result, from the moment she announced her comeback, every path she chose and every step she took made it impossible for people to ignore her professionalism. They were all able to see her most stunning side. So, she was not ignored by the public because of her Backview Dream Man. Because in the commercial, she and the man beside her complemented each other like a painting. So beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off them. Because of this, Zihao received a lot of invitations. Because of Tongning, no one could ignore her strength as she fiercely charged forward. Online, the list of irresponsible backviews continued to shrink. However, no matter who the backview was, the man working with Tongning was definitely not a simple person. Seeing that Tongning's momentum was going out of control, Lan Shi sat in her office in deep thought for an hour. In the end, she gave Zihao a phone call. Zihao was in the middle of confirming that Tongning would accept an interview. As soon as he received Lan Shi's phone call, he immediately drove over to Chengtian Entertainment. The two people looked at each other. They were no longer friends. There was only unfamiliarity in their eyes. Why are you looking for me? What else could I be looking for you for? You are now Tongning's manager. It's easy for you to destroy her, Lan Shi explained. You don't need to consider anything else. This is an order from your superior. And Zihao placed one hand in his pocket as he leaned over and looked at Lan Shi. You are so ugly that I can't recognize you anymore. If you have the ability, then publicly ban Tongning. But, at a time like this, can you? What can you do to the watertight Tongning? Lan Shi held back her rising and falling chest as she looked away angrily. Fine, even if you aren't on my side, who is the man in the commercial with Tongning? And Zihao stood up straight like he had seen through Lan Shi. He revealed a mocking smile. No comment. And Zihao, do you want to end up like Yin Xian? Or do you want to use Yang Jing as your role model? Lan Shi squeezed these words out from between her teeth. What does this have to do with Yin Xian? Lan Shi paused, as if she realized she had said something wrong. She pretended to be calm and said to Zihao, go out. Lan Shi. Scram. And Zihao did not stick around as he turned around and left Lan Shi's office. However, Lan Shi stared blankly at the advertisement on the screen. She had tried everything, but no one dared to tell her who this man was. Her intuition told her that this mysterious man had power that could not be underestimated. Meanwhile, Zihao, as her employee and Tongning as her model, had bypassed her, the CEO, without saying a word and causing so much trouble. Yet they wanted to enjoy the glory on their own? How could it be that easy? Lan Shi sneered. In the end, the list of mysterious figures was narrowed down to 7 people, and could not continue. The remaining 7 people were people that fans couldn't find out about. It was impossible to get in touch with them, and very few people knew about them. But, because of these 7 people, the public was given a signal. Tongning wasn't someone with no background. At least, amongst these 7 people, no matter which one it was, they weren't people that the average person could afford to offend. So Lan Shi's plan to ban Tongning from the public fell through. But it wasn't enough. She had to give back the things that Tongning wanted her to give away. As for Lan Shi, she wanted to turn Tongning into a second Yin Xian. It would be best if she could disappear from the world completely. In reality, Hai Rui had seen a lot of people with Mo Ting, so they had a feeling that this person was Mo Ting. But when they thought about Mo Ting's personality, how could he lower himself to help a female model? So the public, including Hai Rui, began to discuss amongst themselves. But no one dared to associate Mo Ting with this person. Tongning, there are 3 interview shows that I think you can appear on. Pick one of them. And Zihao asked as he took a screenshot of the show. I'll go on Feng Kai. Tongning glanced at the computer screen and replied. And Zihao looked at the list of shows that were not on his list of choices, and was a little surprised. This interview show is the most open and requires the guests to speak the truth. The questions are also very sharp. They will definitely ask you about your back. Yes, I will do an interview with Feng Kai. And Zihao thought for a moment and understood Tongning's intention. She was going to retaliate against Lan Shi. Feng Kai was famous in the industry for not manipulating people behind the scenes. Because they were backed by the government, they did everything according to their own ideas, and were not restricted by anyone. That way, Lan Shi would not be able to do anything behind the scenes. Above all, this show was a test of an artist's EQ. Because of the high viewership ratings, as long as a guest entered the broadcast room, they would not be able to get away with it. No matter how harsh the questions were, they would have to answer them one by one. Okay, and Zihao nodded his head. Tongning sure was brave. While you're at it, release some news to the public that Lan Shi wants to ban me internally. If this was the case, then Feng Kai's questions would not only be about the Backview Dream Man, they would also involve Cheng Tian. Even if it didn't involve Cheng Tian, just the fact that Tongning was going on an interview was enough to make Lan Shi nervous. The phone was silent for a moment. Perhaps Tongning sensed in Zihao's emotions, so she said to him, I told you before. I will make Lan Shi turn around and beg me. If you think it's too difficult, I will get Long Jie to do it. No need. And Zihao shook his head as he replied anxiously, let me do it. Tongning hung up the phone and leaned against a warm chest behind her. Mo Ting took advantage of the situation and wrapped his arms around her. He leaned over and whispered into her ear. You sure have guts to go on phone Kai. If the other party were to ask you if you are married and who your husband is, how would you respond? Tongning turned her head and pressed closer to Mo Ting. How do you think I will answer? Make a guess. Chapter 168. I don't think Lan Shi will allow you to appear on this interview. If you challenge her bottom line like this, how could she let you off so easily? That's right, Mo Ting said in a deep voice. If she can tolerate you stepping on her head, then other models can do the same. In that case, she will lose the dignity of a CEO. She challenged my bottom line first. Tongning replied calmly. Don't you think a model has no pride? Could it be that only by allowing her to play with me and manipulate me will she be able to maintain her dignity? You know that's not what I meant. I'm just worried that she'll make a move on you. Mo Ting quickly explained. I know that's not what you mean. I'm just lamenting that the majority of people in this world can't get fairness. Plus, for Lan Shi, is the feeling of controlling others really that important? Tongning turned around to face Mo Ting and said in a relaxed tone. Ting. You don't need to feel guilty for sending me to Qingtian. In this world, there are good karma and bad karma. As for me, without any seniors to learn from or give me experience, I can only rely on myself to carve out a bloody path. I'm not afraid of being scarred, because I know that when I'm covered in scars, I'll always succeed. So, what's wrong with Lan Shi making things difficult for you? Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply reached out his hand to gently tuck Tongning's hair behind her ear. He was afraid that Lan Shi wouldn't simply make things difficult for her. Of course, if Lan Shi dared to hurt him, he would make her regret it for the rest of her life. In the middle of the night, Zihao got someone to spread the news that Lan Shi had already banned Tongning internally. However, because of Tongning's popularity over the past few days, news of Tongning and Qingtian Entertainment spread like wildfire the next day. Lan Shi's office immediately received a phone call asking for confirmation. Lan Shi instructed her secretary to use the excuse that she was on a business trip and refused to answer any questions. Her relationship with Tongning had long been a secret that couldn't be revealed to the public. Everyone in Qingtian was well aware of it. Afterwards, the reporters gave Zihao a phone call to seek confirmation from Tongning. But Tongning simply replied, I will save this question for Feng Kai and give a direct answer. Lan Shi had already sealed Tongning internally. Could it be that Ling Feng's rumors were true? Tongning had just been signed by Qingtian Entertainment, and Tongning was currently doing well. What reason did Qingtian have to seal her off internally? But Tongning said she would respond to Feng Kai's interview. What big news did she have to announce? Seeing Tongning's response, Lan Shi was so angry she smashed the things on her desk to vent her anger. But no matter how her chest heaved up and down, no matter how much she tried to calm her anger, there was one thing she couldn't suppress. Tongning was indeed threatening her. Tongning actually threatened her. Afterwards, Lan Shi called Luo Hao over. Although after the incident with Yang Jing, there was a gap between the two, in this big Qingtian, she didn't know who else she could trust. Have you heard about Tongning going on Feng Kai? Now do you understand why I stopped you from signing Tongning into Qingtian? I can't deny that I have my own selfish desires, but compared to this, the main reason is that your temperaments can't work together. Right now you just need to tell me what I should do. Lan Shi didn't want to dwell on the past. All she wanted to do was deal with Tongning as soon as possible. If you don't want her to go on Feng Kai then, you can start with Long Jia. Tongning is a person that clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. Although she will definitely take revenge, she truly treats Long Jia as one of her own. If you don't want her to do anything then, Long Jia is your best target. If you don't stop Tongning. Luo Hao took a drag of his cigarette in front of Lan Shi as he remembered Yang Jing's words. I remember Tongning once said in an interview that she doesn't have a boyfriend. In that case, you can expose her living with another man and accuse her of lying to the public. Of course, they didn't understand what Tongning was trying to say. It was because she had a husband and not a boyfriend. Also, and Zihao can't be allowed to stay by Tongning's side. When that time comes, Tongning will suffer a crushing defeat and her manager will be fired. No matter what you do to her, no one will question you. All they will do is applaud you. Lan Shi glared at Luo Hao. The caution in her eyes was even deeper than when she thought about Tongning. So it turns out, you have so many things in your heart. I've thought about it for a long time. How to deal with Tongning, but I've never had the chance. Every day, I've been thinking about what happened today, and what I can do to defeat Tongning. Luo Hao's mind was filled with the words Yang Jing had said. Help me get revenge. Lan Shi nodded her head in ridicule. Although she didn't agree with Luo Hao, she couldn't deny that Luo Hao's method had solved her problem. Tongning wanted her, the CEO, to kneel? Let's see who will kneel first. Feng Kai's interview was scheduled for the following week, 3 days later. Meanwhile, because of LM's commercial, Tongning once again received invitations from magazines and runway shows. Not only that, the companies that had previously replaced Li Danny and Hua Yuan all requested Lan Shi to replace Tongning. They had seen Tongning's charisma as a model. It was truly amazing. Because of this, Li Danny complained to Lan Shi in the office. President Lan, in the end, none of the resources I received from Tongning are usable. Worst of all, the other party is planning to send you a lawyer's letter claiming you did not follow through with the contract and replace Tongning. This is not going to be a small sum. Lan Shi furrowed her brows. At first, she didn't think much of it. But, as Hua Yuan began to add up all the activities, Lan Shi knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. These shameless business partners. In terms of status, Li Danny and Hua Yuan were both higher than Tongning. Yet, the other party was blind to not use Li Danny and Hua Yuan? I can't believe Tongning is working so hard. This is only 1 month of work, yet it's already more than Hua Yuan and I put together. An old model is indeed an old model. Once you get old, you can only work hard. Hua Yuan did not say anything as harsh as Lan Shi. She simply reminded Lan Shi. How about President Lan, you get Tongning to come back and pick you up. Lan Shi looked at Hua Yuan with deep meaning. In the end, she pulled out her phone and called for her secretary. She had decided to renegotiate with the business partners. However, in the end, without exception, they still wanted Tongning. Lan Shi had no choice but to give Tongning a phone call, right now. Come to the office. On the other side of the phone, Tongning was currently jogging with Mo Ting. All she said was, if you need anything, contact my manager. So, she completely ignored Lan Shi. She simply glanced at Mo Ting's good figure before continuing to jog on the treadmill. Lan Shi, you gave away resources just like that. Now you want to return them? You still have to see if I accept them. Chapter 169. This was the first time an artist had hung up on Lan Shi's phone. It was an A-list model called Tongning. Lan Shi held back her anger and suppressed the frustration in her heart. She then gave An Zihao a phone call. At this time, An Zihao flipped through Tongning's schedule and replied, because you let Hua Yun and Li Danny handle all of her previous jobs, Tongning has accepted other jobs. Her schedule is already full. I'm sorry, President Lan, it's not our fault. Of course it wasn't Tongning and An Zihao's fault. Lan Shi had only herself to blame for everything. She never expected Tongning would become so popular because of LM's highlight reel. Nor did she expect her business partners would insist on Tongning. Losing a sum of compensation wasn't a big deal, but, as the CEO of Chengtian, she had absolute power. Yet she was being played around by a model? Lan Shi hung up the phone. If Tongning was in front of her, she would have pounced on her and torn her to shreds. After thinking for a moment, Lan Shi called Luo Hao into her office. She placed one hand on her forehead and asked tiredly, who else does Long Jia have at home? Her parents passed away early, so she still has a grandfather. Then what are you waiting for? There are only 2 days left until Tongning goes on Feng Kai. Immediately send someone to fetch her grandfather. Be careful, don't make any noise. Lan Shi lowered her arms and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out from inside the office. Lan Shi. Luo Hao's expression darkened. He had never seen Lan Shi hate someone so much that she would do something like this in front of everyone. I want Tongning to walk step by step into my trap. I want her to know that I am her master. Now that things had gotten to this point, it was no longer as simple as an internal fight. As Lan Shi and Tong Ning's relationship worsened, a fierce battle was bound to break out between the two. Neither was willing to bow down to the other. Luo Hao looked at Lan Shi's determined expression and nodded his head. I understand. I will handle this matter for you. To deal with an unusual person, you need to use an unusual method. In reality, Tong Ning had always been on the defensive against Lan Shi. Otherwise, all she could do was wait to be taken advantage of. In Lan Shi's eyes, her models were either like Li Danny, who thought highly of themselves and were easy to control, or like Hua Yuan, who knew what was right and what was wrong, but had no choice but to go with the flow. Tong Ning didn't want to do anything. She just wanted to be herself. After confirming the interview time for Feng Kai, and Zihao arranged for Tong Ning to go to a few top magazines for interviews. That evening, she suddenly received a message from Mo Ting. Dinner at the Crown Hotel tonight. I've booked a candlelit dinner. Tong Ning looked at the date on her phone and smiled. What are you doing? Today is not our wedding anniversary. I'll take you to see the best scenery in Beijing. Tong Ning put away her phone and turned to look at Long Jie and Zihao. Originally, she wanted Zihao to escort her to Hai Rui, but Long Jie suddenly said, My grandfather has come to Beijing to see me. I need to hurry home. Why don't we all go see your grandfather? No need, Tong Ning. According to your current popularity, you are bound to have a crowd of fans. You should let my grandfather off the hook. Long Jie clasped her hands together and made an exaggerated gesture of worship. Tong Ning let out a gentle laugh and said to Long Jie, In that case, take your grandfather out and have some fun. I'll give you 2 days off. Okay. Long Jie nodded her head and smiled sweetly. Afterwards, Tong Ning asked Zihao to drop Long Jie off and escorted her to Hai Rui. After Mo Ting appeared, Zihao finally retreated and handed over the responsibility of protecting Long Jie to Mo Ting. He had recently been investigating the truth behind Yun Xian's death. After returning to Mo Ting's car, the couple looked at each other and smiled. However, when they arrived at the hotel, Tong Ning and Mo Ting alighted from the car through a special passageway. Originally, they wanted to hand the keys to the hotel attendant, but Tong Ning noticed the attendant's posture. As she received the keys from Mo Ting, the attendant had his head lowered the entire time. At this moment, Tong Ning didn't know what to feel. It was like all the love and hate in the past had disappeared. All she could feel was the warmth of the person hugging her. What are you looking at? Mo Ting asked. That person just now was Han Yufan, Tong Ning replied calmly. Seeing Mo Ting's eyebrows furrow, she quickly explained, Hey, don't misunderstand. I was just surprised. Doesn't he have a mother that's married to a director? Logically speaking, even if he was kicked out of Tianyi, he shouldn't have ended up in this state. Mo Ting was a little unhappy as he dragged Tong Ning away and wrapped her in his coat until they entered the lift. Tong Ning let out a gentle laugh. It was rare to see Mo Ting jealous, so she secretly stretched out her hand and held onto one of Mo Ting's fingers as she shook it. That's all in the past. Mo Ting took the opportunity to pinch her chin and force her to look into his eyes. In that case, you should take the initiative. I'll be your future. Tong Ning took the opportunity to place a kiss on his lips and bury her blushing face into his neck. Is that enough? Mo Ting was satisfied as he hugged her tightly and led her to the top floor of the hotel, the 120th floor. This is the highest floor in Beijing. You can see the entire city from here. Tong Ning stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows as she looked down. She couldn't help but be moved by the sparkling lights of the city. A moment later, someone hugged her from behind and placed his lips on her neck. Are you afraid of heights? With you here, I'm not afraid. Tong Ning shook her head. With the satisfaction of being needed and relied on, Mo Ting turned Tong Ning's chin and gently placed a kiss on it. Actually, a place like this is more suitable for kissing. Why? Because it's too high. It's easy to lack oxygen. Meanwhile, Long Jie rushed home anxiously. However, she did not see her grandfather as she had hoped. Instead, she saw Luo Hao waiting for her at the front door. Long Jie was confused. Just as she was about to give her grandfather a phone call, Luo Hao snatched the phone from her hand and helped her hang up. He then tilted his head and reminded her. Get in the car. Don't you want to see your grandfather? What did you do to my grandfather? Long Jie paused for a moment before realizing something was wrong. Her eyes turned red and her voice became a little hoarse. What can we do to him? We simply invited him to be our guest. After speaking, Luo Hao opened the car door, gesturing for Long Jie not to waste any more time. Long Jie didn't know what Luo Hao's motive was, nor did she know where her grandfather was. So, all she could do was bite her lip as she boarded Luo Hao's black car. Not long after, the couple arrived in front of Lan Shi's apartment. Long Jie had a bad feeling as she suddenly grabbed onto Luo Hao's arm and asked, Did President Lan invite my grandfather? What is she trying to coerce me into doing? After all, Long Jie had been in the industry for a long time, so she was naturally sensitive. You want to know? Then let's go in. Luo Hao said as he freed himself from her grip and stepped out of the car. Chapter 170. Long Jie suddenly felt like someone had grabbed her by the throat as countless possibilities popped up in her mind. Especially after she mechanically entered Lan Shi's apartment. Under the bright chandelier, she saw her simple-looking grandfather talking to Lan Shi with a kind smile on his face. Her chest burned with fire like a volcano that was about to erupt. President Lan. What is the meaning of this? Long Jie's voice trembled slightly. Hearing Long Jie's voice, Lan Shi and grandfather Long both turned to look at her. Lan Shi even stood up and greeted Long Jie warmly. You have been very responsible towards Tongning, so I wanted to reward you. So, I brought your grandfather over. You don't mind, right? Xiaoman, President Lan treats me too well. She treats me like family. You should properly thank her. Grandfather Long smiled happily as he waved his hand at Long Jie. He was wearing a new set of comfortable clothes. Long Jie looked at Lan Shi angrily as her hands clenched into fists. She even wanted to ask Lan Shi if she had any humanity left in her. She didn't even let go of a 78-year-old man. Even a 78-year-old man was being used. Luo Hao, accompany grandfather Long to get some rest. I still have some things to discuss with Long Jie. Lan Shi looked at Long Jie threateningly. Her gaze was like a cold knife. Long Jie wanted to drag her grandfather away, but she knew if she didn't get what Lan Shi wanted, she wouldn't be able to walk out the door. In that case, you guys take your time. I'm going to go get some rest. I'm getting old and useless. I get tired every time I sit in the car. Long Jie watched as her grandfather disappeared into the distance before she questioned Lan Shi. What is the meaning of this? Don't you understand what I'm trying to say? Lan Shi left Long Jie's side and returned to the sofa to sit down. I want to use you, it's that simple. But, how can I make a loyal dog like you abandon Tongning? I can only think of your family. Long man, you've been in this industry for a long time. Haven't you seen this kind of method before? Aren't you already used to it? Long Jie held back her tears. Even though she had a kind nature, she couldn't withstand Lan Shi's humiliation and coercion. What do you want? Just say it, there's no need to beat around the bush. Lan Shi let out a laugh as she placed the glass of red wine between her fingers. She then stood up and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. I want to know all of Tongning's secrets. For example, who is that figure in LM's commercial? Long Jie lowered her head, smiled and replied, he's from the Tang family. Long Jie casually made up a story. As you know, Tongning is the heiress of the Tang family. She is just a model. Who could she hire to save the day? It could only be someone from the Tang family. But we couldn't let anyone else in the Tang family know, so we had to keep it a secret. Think about it, if it was any other artist, they would definitely want to be exposed. Why would they disappear without a word? Lan Shi turned around and glanced at Long Jie with a cold glare. But at least she accepted the answer. What kind of background does Tongning have? What kind of man are you intimate with? Other than being the daughter of the Tang family who was kicked out, what other background does she have? If she had a powerful background, would she be exploited like this? As for men, she is quite close to the editor of TQ. They have had dinner together a few times, but they are not that close. Perhaps Tongning likes Lin Weisan, but Editor Lin is not interested in her. After hearing this, Lan Shi walked over to Long Jie and pinched her chin. Tongning clearly said she has a man and they are living together. She has never said she is living with a man. She simply admitted to being in a relationship. Lan Shi glared at Long Jie and warned, "You better make sure everything you say today is the truth. Otherwise your grandfather is getting old and his health isn't good." "I've already said everything that needs to be said. What else do you want? If you don't believe me, you can go investigate." Long Jie replied helplessly. Tongning has always relied on herself. No matter when, she has never thought about using someone to get ahead. Nor has she ever thought about being a threat to you. But her existence itself is a threat. Lan Shi finished her glass of red wine in one gulp. She then turned to Long Jie and said, "I won't ask you to do too much. Just this one time, stop Tongning from going on Feng Kai. As long as you succeed, I will let your grandfather go." Long Jie was silent for a moment before sneering. "Are you that confident that I will betray Tongning? Long man, although I don't know much about you, I'm sure you wouldn't disregard the grandfather that raised you for the sake of an outsider, right? What do you want me to do? Actually, I don't need you to do much. All I need you to do is hold Tongning back. It's that simple." Lan Shi threw out the task and said it was simple. But for Long Jie, if she agreed to Lan Shi's suggestion, it would be the same as losing her humanity. In reality, people could make the right choice under any circumstances. If the pressure of the environment changed them, wouldn't they be worse than a spring? "I know you and Tongning are like sisters. But Long man, I can do anything." Long Jie smiled bitterly. If she still couldn't see Lan Shi's bottom line, then she would be too slow. "Do anything. Do. I won't betray Tongning directly. I knew that a long time ago. How about this? That night, Danny has a show to attend and her assistant is on leave. You can be Danny's assistant." She was Tongning's assistant. Yet Lan Shi was lending her to Li Danny. What other motive could she have? Would Li Danny let her off so easily? As for Tongning, as soon as she heard she was being bullied, would she still care about the talk show? "Okay, but I have a request. That night, I need to send my grandfather off. I promise you." After speaking, Lan Shi turned around with a hint of ridicule. "I'll say it again. There is no such thing as absolute loyalty in this world. Everyone is simply doing it for their own motives." That night, as Long Jie left Lan Shi's apartment, she was in a daze. But when she thought of Tongning, she still had a light in her heart. Before dawn, it was pitch black, but with her eyes closed, she could still get through it. Late at night, Tongning returned home from the hotel. Thinking of Long Jie's grandfather, she gave Long Jie a phone call. "Did you pick up grandfather? Are you happy?" "Yes, I'm very happy," Long Jie replied as she wiped away her tears. "Tongning, you have Zaheo by your side. Just pretend I'm on vacation for the next few days. Stop nagging. Do you have enough money to spend?" "I do." Long Jie almost choked on her tears. "There are only 2 days left until you go on the show. Remember to be careful. Lan Shi isn't easy to deal with." Hearing Long Jie mention Lan Shi, Tongning's smile finally disappeared. She had always thought Long Jie was too happy to see her grandfather. But from the way Long Jie spoke, she was definitely suppressing her emotions, not tears of joy. Chapter 171. Long. "Grandfather is calling me. Tongning, let me take care of him." Long Jie didn't have the courage to continue acting cool in front of Tongning. She knew how meticulous Tongning was. Tongning's fingers tightened around her phone as she nodded her head and replied, "Have a good rest." After Long Jie hung up the phone, she collapsed onto the floor like she had been drained of energy. It was like dealing with Lan Shi wasn't this tiring. Long Jie had considered telling Tongning as soon as possible. But apart from dragging Tongning into the trap, there was no benefit in doing so. Tongning had already endured too much along the way. If they were to tell Tongning about this matter, Tongning and Lan Shi would definitely not let it go. She would think of a way to save her grandfather, but Tongning and Lan Shi could forget about framing her, especially when they were using her. Tongning lowered her arms and stood by the window in deep thought. She wasn't sure if she was overthinking, but she felt Long Jie was a little different than usual. Behind her, Mo Ting brought her a jacket. After standing beside her, he pulled her into his embrace. Tongning leaned against his chest that gave her a sense of security and looked up at Mo Ting. Ting, can you let Lu Che go see Long Jie? I have a feeling there's something wrong with her. In reality, as Long Jie's assistant, Lu Che didn't have much free time. But Mo Ting simply lowered his head and kissed Tongning on the forehead. Since his wife had a request, he was going to fulfill it as soon as possible. So he immediately pulled out his phone and gave Lu Che a phone call, giving him a special task. Lu Che didn't dare to waste any time. Even though he had just finished work, he still drove over to Long Jie's apartment. Although he felt it was rude to barge into a woman's apartment at night, for the sake of Tongning's peace of mind, Lu Che still went up the stairs and knocked on Long Jie's door. Long Jie didn't expect anyone to come, so she quickly wiped away her tears and asked who it was. Lu Che expressed his intentions. Long Jie's heart warmed, but she did not open the door. Go home. I'm fine. I'm already asleep. Lu Che nodded his head and did not continue to disturb her. But Mo Ting had instructed him to see Long Jie no matter what. So Lu Che stood guard outside Long Jie's door for the entire night. It wasn't until the next day that Long Jie left the house that she saw Lu Che standing outside. She was shocked. It's such a cold day, why didn't you come home? Lu Che rubbed his hands together and smiled. I slept in the car all night and just got on. Long Jie noticed Lu Che's nose had turned red from the cold, so she quickly gestured for him to come in. At least warm him up a little. Lu Che entered Long Jie's home with a confused expression. Didn't you say your grandfather came to see you? Where is he? Long Jie froze for a moment before replying calmly, at the hotel. Are you in some kind of trouble? Lu Che looked around Long Jie's apartment. Because Tongning used to live here, it had multiple floors and was big enough for the whole family. Yet, Long Jie was letting her grandfather stay in a hotel? Above all, Long Jie's eyes were swollen to the size of walnuts. It was obvious she had been crying all night. No. If you don't want to tell me, I can ask the president to investigate. No. Long Jie pulled Lu Che back before letting go and taking 2 steps back. We shouldn't alert too many people about something like this. In that case, tell me. Lu Che sat down on the sofa in the living room. Actually, Long Jie couldn't be blamed for not being able to keep the truth to herself. According to Long Jie's usual temper, even if the sky was falling down, she would at most let out a few angry roars. She would never reveal her emotions like this. Especially when she purposely put on a facade and forced a smile. It made people even more suspicious. I was threatened. What? Lu Che was shocked. Long Jie lowered her head and explained the entire situation to Lu Che. However, from beginning to end, she emphasized one thing. Don't tell Tongning. Don't affect her interview on Feng Kai. Don't let Lan Shi's plan succeed. Otherwise, she will think she can achieve her motive by using this method. From now on, she will only get worse. But you can't just endure it like an idiot. Lan Shi is trying to frame Tongning. If I don't pretend to compromise, she will think of other ways to frame Tongning. Rather than letting that happen, I might as well beat her at her own game. But what about you? What about your grandfather? Lu Che loosened his tie. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There were countless people like Lan Shi in this world. Of course, there were also people like Long Jie who would rather suffer. Wasn't she stupid? Lu Che's heart was moved. When the time comes, I will call the police. I will send someone to keep an eye on where Lan Shi is keeping your grandfather. I will try my best to ensure his safety. If I get the chance, I will definitely help you get him out. Lu Che promised. Actually, Long Jie's considerations were not wrong from her point of view. If she told Tongning, she would only escalate the situation and cause Lan Shi to do something even more extreme. But if she went along with Lan Shi, she would feel wronged, so temporarily enduring and calling the police was her best option. But Lu Che was afraid Lan Shi would take her revenge on Long Jie's grandfather. Even if you don't tell the madam, you should at least ask someone you trust for help. A few people are better than one. Plus, don't you trust our president? If you tell the president, this matter will be a lot simpler. With Lu Che's concern, Long Jie felt a lot better. But she still decided to minimize the situation. I know Big Boss is capable, but he is my grandfather. How could I dare to gamble? I'm afraid things will get out of hand. What if my grandfather gets hurt? Let me calm Lan Shi down first. Since that's the case, you might as well get some rest at home. I'm sure you didn't sleep well last night. I will stand guard outside the door. Lu Che's voice softened. The night Tongning went on Feng Kai, Lan Shi wanted me to be Li Danny's assistant. As you know, Tongning and Li Danny's relationship is like fire and water. Lan Shi wants Tongning to see me being humiliated at a crucial moment and give up on the chance to go on the show. For your sake, the madam will definitely give up on the chance. Lu Che believed Tongning was the same type of person. She would protect her own people, even if it was just an assistant. She wouldn't allow others to bully her. So we can't let Lan Shi's plan succeed. I will put on my act. I hope you can help me remind Tongning not to bring her phone on the interview. Lan Shi didn't tell me to trick Tongning into coming. She wanted to play Tai Chi with Lan Shi, just like what Lan Shi had asked her previously. After speaking, Long Jie turned around and returned to her room. As she lay in bed, she felt a lot more at ease as she thought about the man outside. So Lu Che stood guard at Long Jie's apartment for the entire morning. Apart from giving Mo Ting and Tongning a phone call, he also instructed the paparazzi he was familiar with to look for clues about Long Jie's grandfather. Long Jie had previously mentioned she had seen her grandfather at Lan Shi's home. But according to Lan Shi's personality, she would definitely move the hostage. There was no way she would leave any evidence for others to use against her. On the surface, Cheng Tian appeared peaceful, but, behind the scenes, there was an undercurrent brewing. Tongning would never have imagined the danger that Long Jie was in. Someone that could make someone as calm as her go crazy. Because this time, Lan Shi had crossed the line. Chapter 172. On the eve of Feng Kai's interview, Tongning went to the studio to record a preview. As she was leaving, a huge crowd of fans gathered at the entrance of the television station. They immediately sent her flowers and requested to take photos with her. Tongning politely nodded her head in agreement. After all, waiting outside on such a cold day was quite tiring. Of course, the fans were most curious about the Backview Dream Man. However, Tongning simply smiled at them. Remember to watch Feng Kai's live broadcast tomorrow. I'm sure you will all be satisfied with the answer. The fans couldn't help but squeal in surprise, especially when they saw Tongning take off her glasses and give them an autograph. Up close, she looks even prettier. Her legs are so long. Tongning Jie, don't be afraid. We will protect you. Tongning gave them autographs as she walked. Hearing these words, she paused for a moment before giving everyone a smile. A 15 to 16-year-old girl wearing a school uniform held a banner in her hand. Tongning was reminded of Lan Yu. They were both at the same age, but the energy these fans gave off moved her. She was only 15 years old, yet she was willing to protect others. So, Tongning couldn't resist as she patted the girl on the head. I will protect you, you protect yourself. In reality, she knew she had always been focused on fighting back and had never had the chance to interact with her fans. From now on, she was going to listen to her fans. In the end, Tongning waved goodbye to everyone and boarded the nanny van under Nziheo's protection. You sure find it easy to gain energy from others. Nziheo thought about Tongning's words and commented. Of course, a 15-year-old child actually said she wanted to protect me. Even if she doesn't have the ability, she has the courage. Don't tell me we adults are no better than a child? Nziheo was speechless, but he did not say a word. All he knew was he had discovered something new about Tongning. That was, she was constantly reflecting on herself. No wonder she had an endless supply of energy. Are you really going to reveal your identity as the Backview Dream Man tomorrow? Nziheo finally asked after quite some time. You won't regret it? Tongning smiled mysteriously. Even though it was Nziheo, she did not respond. But, would she really be able to appear on tomorrow's interview? At the same time, Li Danny and her manager were sitting in Lan Shi's spacious and luxurious office. Lan Shi's back was facing them as she sipped her coffee. Her voice was calm, but it contained an irresistible power. For tomorrow's show, give your assistant a day off. I've prepared a new assistant for you. I don't quite understand what you mean. Li Danny shrugged. Lan Shi turned around and walked over to Li Danny's side. She placed her hand on Li Danny's shoulder. I will transfer Tongning's assistant to you for a day. You can use her however you want. The metaphor was to let you order them around, torture them, and vent your anger. Li Danny didn't quite understand Lan Shi's actions, but of course, Lan Shi wouldn't tell Li Danny her true motive. So, Li Danny hid her smile as she returned to her desk and explained. Tongning is my model. I have the right to use everything the company gives her, including people. However, Li Danny had no idea, Long Jie had always been Tongning's personal assistant. No one else had the right to order her around. Tomorrow I'll just be your assistant. In the future, I'll be your manager. Hearing Lan Shi mention the word manager, Li Danny's eyes lit up. This meant Lan Shi's tolerance towards Tongning had reached its limit. In other words, she had decided to remove An Zihao from Tongning's side. I understand, I will make good use of this assistant, Li Danny said without holding back. Li Danny replied bluntly. Since this was Lan Shi's special request, she was not going to disappoint her. After another day and night of tracking, even Lu Che did not receive any information on Long Jie's grandfather. It seemed, Lan Shi was quite cautious in her actions. Long Jie blamed herself, but she couldn't betray Tongning. After all, a person's bottom line couldn't be forgotten. Don't worry, Lan Shi won't dare to act recklessly for now. After all, a person's life is at stake. If Lan Shi gets involved, she will sooner or later play herself to death. She won't take such a big risk, Lu Che comforted. He knew Long Jie was in a difficult position. If it was him, he would have made an irrational decision a long time ago. Lu Che, you need to remind An Zihao and Tongning not to bring their phones with them at the recording tonight. Don't let them find out about my situation. Can you really handle it? Lu Che was a little worried. It won't be a problem. Lu Che did not say a word, but deep down he knew what was going on. He had used Hai Rui's resources to search for Long Jie for 2 days, but to no avail. Now that he knew Long Jie was going to be humiliated, was he going to sit back and watch her suffer? After returning to Hai Rui, Lu Che had been thinking about this problem. So when Mo Ting called him, he did not respond. Why are you so distracted? President, is the madam already on her way to Feng Kai? Lu Che looked out the window and noticed the setting sun. Mo Ting closed the document in his hands and looked at Lu Che with interest. What are you trying to say? President. Lu Che hesitated for a moment, but still told Mo Ting the whole story. After hearing, Mo Ting looked at Lu Che coldly. You've already been by my side for 7 years. Don't tell me 7 years hasn't taught you how to deal with threats? Did you think by using Hai Rui's resources, you could immediately find Long Man's grandfather? How naive. Don't you know if things get out of hand a life could be at stake? President. Lu Che couldn't defend himself because this incident involved Tongning. He knew how important Tongning was to Mo Ting, so he didn't dare to drag her into this mess. Of course, he wanted to keep his promise to Long Jie even more. He should have said this a long time ago, yet he didn't. He also felt it was strange. Mo Ting took a deep breath, trying to calm his anger. However, just as he was about to make a move, he received a phone call from Tongning. Ting, is Lu Che there? What's wrong? After thinking about it, I still feel like something isn't right with Long Jie. Why did Lu Che remind Zihao not to bring our phones to Feng Kai? Tongning asked. Mo Ting was silent for a moment. In the end, he told Tongning everything that had happened to Long Jie over the past few days. He knew, even if he didn't say anything, Tongning would still be worried about Long Jie and go look for her first. In that case, where is Long Jie right now? After hearing everything, Tongning's voice trembled. Hai Center. Ting, let me handle this personally. But I may need to use your identity. Mo Ting couldn't help but laugh. Go ahead and use it. Chapter 173. In times of helplessness, People wished they had the strongest power. Because in this world sometimes the strong bullied the weak. Everyone knew Long Jie was Tong Ning's assistant. Yet here she was at High E, carrying bags of all sizes on her body as she followed behind Li Danny. She obeyed Li Danny's orders, and allowed Li Danny to order her around. Did Tong Ning never teach you the rules in the past? You are now Danny's assistant. If you don't greet people when you see them, people will think there's something wrong with Danny's work attitude. The manager poked Long Jie's head as she scolded her. I don't know if Tong Ning has a good upbringing, but since you are following Danny today, you need to be respectful. Long Jie endured the humiliation, the scolding and the ridiculing looks of those around her as she lowered her head and replied, "Sorry, I will be careful from now on." Danny is about to put on her makeup. Don't run around like a newbie. Go to the car and grab Danny's shoes. Long Jie tried her best to hold back her anger. Her hands were balled into fists as her face gradually turned red from anger. Her eyes were also filled with humiliation. They were filled with suppressed anger and tears. Li Danny's manager looked at Long Jie and uncrossed her arms. She walked over to Li Danny and smiled proudly. When Tong Ning's people are ordered around, they are indeed different. They are like dogs. Have you put away the things in the shoes? Li Danny sat in front of the mirror as she allowed the makeup artist to work on her face. Don't worry. How could I make a mistake with such an exciting show? The manager looked at Li Danny in the mirror as a mysterious smile appeared on her face. The backstage of a show had always been messy and poor. Even for an international model like Li Danny, when faced with a top international brand, she would not receive any treatment that exceeded her expectations. She would end up in the same waiting room as a bunch of newbie models. A moment later, Long Jie appeared in front of Li Danny with a pair of shoes. The manager glanced at her and scoffed. What are you waiting for? Kneel down and help Danny change her shoes. Helping an artist change their shoes wasn't anything new, but she was Tong Ning's assistant, yet she had to kneel down in front of Li Danny and help her enemy change her shoes. Long Jie endured the pain in her throat as she knelt on the floor with the shoe in her hand. With one hand she held the high heel, and the other on Li Danny's right foot. However, halfway through the shoe, Li Danny suddenly let out a scream as she kicked Long Jie. Inside the shoe was a sharp thumbtack. Then with a loud bang, the manager's slap landed on Long Jie's face. She pointed at Long Jie and yelled, "You sure are brave. How dare you place a pushpin in Danny's shoe? Are you trying to make it impossible for Danny to walk the show? Did Tong Ning order you to do this?" Long Jie was stunned by the slap as a clear handprint appeared on the left side of her face. "I didn't miss any thumbtacks. When I got them, they looked like this." "You're still quibbling?" The manager threw another slap onto Long Jie's right cheek. She seemed to have used too much force as her own palm started to hurt, so the manager quickly swung it a few times. Everyone saw it. Long Jie looked around at the gazes of sympathy, ridicule, and those that were watching the commotion. In reality, how many of them didn't know what was going on? Li Danny simply wanted to find an excuse to humiliate her in front of everyone. Whether or not she was the one that placed the thumbtack, who cared? Above all, at this show, no one had a higher status than Li Danny. So who dared to stand up for her? Not a single person. Long Jie, don't think about anyone else standing up for you today. Let me tell you. Today you are Danny's assistant. Even if Tong Ning comes, you will only be beaten and bullied. I'm sorry. Long Jie couldn't hold back her tears anymore. As they landed on her swollen face, her tears burned even hotter and more painful. Do you think an apology is enough? Did you know because of your thumbtack, Danny's modeling career could be ruined? The manager slammed a heavy accusation onto Long Jie. What do you want me to do? Of course, kneel down in front of Danny and beg for her forgiveness. The manager was surprised that Long Jie didn't understand the rules of the industry. I'm letting you off easy by making you kneel down. If it wasn't for President Lan, I would have called the police. Kneel down? Kneel down in front of Li Danny? Long Jie laughed in her heart. Although she had already prepared herself mentally and thought of a lot of words to comfort herself. When the time came, she was tempted to tear Mo Ting's arrogant face into pieces and snap his neck. Only then would the anger and grievance in her heart be appeased. But isn't kneeling a bit too much? You've already slapped me and humiliated me. You really don't need to go so far. After hearing Long Jie's words, Li Danny's lips curved upwards as she grabbed onto Long Jie's shirt and pulled her towards herself. Did you think I would be afraid of Tongning? Did you think, as an international model, I would be afraid of an A-grade model's revenge? If you want to blame someone, then blame yourself for following the wrong owner. Even a dog needs luck. After speaking, Li Danny let go of Long Jie's hand like she had touched something dirty as she quickly wiped her hands with a napkin. Aren't you going to kneel down and apologize? Long Jie did not move. I told you to kneel. The manager kicked Long Jie's leg from behind. Seeing this scene, the staff from Hai couldn't stand it anymore as they stepped forward to intervene. Danny, this is a public place. Don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do this? This evil woman placed a thumbtack in Danny's shoe. What's the meaning of this? Isn't this asking for Danny's life? We are already being very kind by not calling the police. Shouldn't we just ask her to apologize? The staff smiled awkwardly at the manager, but she is still Tongning's assistant. As soon as the manager heard Tongning's name, she exerted even more force on her leg, causing Long Jie to kneel on the ground uncontrollably. The pain spread from her knee to the rest of her body, as everyone around burst into laughter. The manager rubbed his chin as he looked at Long Jie with a satisfied expression. If you had been so obedient from the start, I wouldn't have had to put in so much effort. Hey, since you've already kneeled, shouldn't you also kowtow to our Danny? The manager held onto Long Jie's shoulder and was about to push her down when the backstage suddenly became noisy. It wasn't clear who shouted, Tongning has arrived. Not long after, Li Danny's manager lifted his head. Before he could see who it was, a slap flew towards him. The force of the slap was more than 10 times stronger than the one he had used on Long Jie. Chapter 174. The scene in front of them suddenly froze. The person that had arrived was Tongning. She was originally supposed to be on Feng Kai's show, but at this moment, she was standing in front of Li Danny's manager. Behind her stood An Zihao and 4 tall foreign bodyguards. Backstage, everyone's eyes grew wide as they covered their mouths, waiting to see how the show would continue. Tongning's aura was cold. Her eyes were sharp like an eagle's, filled with extreme coldness and anger. She looked down at Li Danny's manager. The manager was shocked by the way Tongning was acting. She covered her face and tried to speak, but she couldn't say a word. An Zihao took the opportunity to help Long Jie up from the ground. However, he noticed the red handprints on her face. Tongning. Long Jie was a little choked up. She was afraid Tongning would show up. She was afraid Tongning would affect Feng Kai's interview. But why did Tongning still show up? How many slaps did she slap you? Tongning's voice was cold and clear, but it wasn't sharp. It was deep, like she was trying her best to suppress her emotions. 2. Pa. Without waiting for Long Jie to finish, Tongning threw another slap towards the right side of the manager's face without hesitation. You. How dare you hit me like this? Li Danny's manager looked at Tongning in disbelief. He stared at this woman that had always stood aloof from the world. Tongning did not say a word. After venting her anger on her right hand, there was still her left. So she lifted her left hand and slapped the manager onto the ground. A total of 4 slaps. Tongning returned them double, without missing a single one. What else? Tongning turned to ask Long Jie. Seeing Long Jie didn't respond, her lips curved upwards as she said to the bodyguards behind her. I've said it before, I won't provoke anyone. But if someone crosses my bottom line, I will definitely return them double. So Tongning pointed to Li Danny's manager and ordered, make him kneel in front of Long Jie. Make him kneel in front of Long Jie in the same way he made Long Jie kneel. Remember double. Tongning's words were like a sentence. Even though she knew there were so many people present today, even though she knew her modeling career would be affected, if she couldn't even protect the people around her then, even if she became a supermodel, what was the point? Tongning's eyes turned red, but she had an irresistible force. Li Danny's manager was scared stiff, especially as the bodyguards held him back. He felt his mind go blank. All the pleasure he felt just now had turned into retribution at this moment. Moreover, it was double retribution. Tongning. Don't go too far. Seeing this, Li Danny finally stood up. However, Tongning took a step towards Li Danny, lowered her head and laughed. As she lifted her head, she received another slap across the face. Not only did she hit the manager, she also hit Li Danny. Since you said I bullied you, I'll bully you today. What about it? Li Danny stared at Tongning with her eyes wide open. Because she had never been humiliated like this before, her expression was twisted and fierce. You dare hit me? Compared to what you've done to my assistant, I've only paid back 1/10. She was sent to me by Commander G. Are you trying to rebel? President Lan? Tongning sneered as she approached Li Danny. What right does she have to order my assistant around? Li Danny Longjia is my personal assistant. She has nothing to do with Chengtian Entertainment. You are using my assistant? Who gave you the right to do so? This is a matter between you and President Lan. All I know is Longjia is my assistant tonight. How could Li Danny admit defeat? She obviously knew she couldn't stand on her own 2 feet yet. She was being unreasonable. Plus, Tongning, you hit me. Do you not want to be a model anymore? Li Danny yelled. This is my show. Tongning, how dare you come here and cause trouble? Your show? But I don't think it will be any time soon. Tongning scanned her surroundings. The look of disdain on her face was clear. If she didn't teach Li Danny a lesson today, her surname wasn't Tang. What do you mean? What I mean is, from today onwards, as long as it's your job, I will fight for it. As long as you like it, I will fight for it. You bullied my assistant for half an hour, so I, Tongning, will suppress you for the rest of your life. As Tongning said these words, she had no hesitation and no fear. Even if she was to become the headline tomorrow, even if people said she was a bully, she would not back down. After hearing Tongning's words, everyone was stunned by her handsomeness. Because they had seen the whole thing with their own eyes, they knew that Li Danny had gone too far. Although Tongning wasn't in the right to hit her, seeing her assistant being forced to kneel. On top of that, she even had to kowtow. If she could endure it, she wouldn't be human. Everyone secretly cheered Tongning on. Even those that were looking down on her, and were waiting to watch a good show at this moment. They were all convinced by Tongning, a person that was willing to stand up for her assistant, and was willing to gamble on her career as a model. Who else could do what Tongning had done? They were all at the bottom of society or were still struggling at the bottom. So they had all been bullied. But at that time, they had never met Tongning, who was so protective of her. You want to steal my job and suppress me for the rest of my life? Tongning, are you dreaming? Li Danny obviously didn't believe Tongning's words. Who do you think you are? Even Lan, she hates you. Do you think you can suppress me? Tongning did not say a word. She simply turned her head and yelled. Who is the boss of Hai? Can you invite the brand boss over tonight? I'll go. Within the crowd, a staff member from the brand immediately raised his hand. Not long after, a Frenchman appeared in front of everyone and looked at Tongning and Li Danny suspiciously. I would like to see how you are going to steal my job. Li Danny looked at Tongning like she was watching a good show. She knew Tongning was just a paper tiger. She couldn't show her true abilities. However, just as Li Danny revealed a pleased expression, everyone broke out in a cold sweat on Tongning's behalf. Tongning pulled out her phone and made a phone call. It doesn't matter who you call. However, after 3 rings, the phone was picked up. A clear voice could be heard from the other side. Hello, Hairui Entertainment. I am Emoting. Emoting. Was actually Emoting? The person Tongning called was actually Emoting? The CEO of Hairui Entertainment, Emoting? Li Danny's expression gradually turned pale. To be exact, she took a few steps back in disbelief as a thin layer of cold sweat formed on her forehead. President Emo, sorry to disturb you. There's something I would like to borrow your assistant to come to Hai. I've run into a bit of trouble. Do you need me to come personally? Emoting's lips curved upwards as he asked gently. Chapter 175. No need. It's just a small matter, it's not good for your status. What right did Li Danny have to see Mo Ting? Lu Che was more than enough. Mo Ting was silent for a moment. He did not hang up the phone. Instead, he made a phone call to Lu Che. Hai Hall, immediately help Tongning deal with the problem. As long as Tongning needs anything, help her. Tongning was on speakerphone. So through the phone, Mo Ting's words were clearly transmitted to every corner of the waiting room. Everyone had a complicated expression on their faces. Especially the pale-faced Li Danny, who had yet to recover from the shock. Is this person enough for me to suppress you for the rest of my life? Tongning asked Li Danny coldly as she put away her phone. Li Danny did not say a word. Her body felt like it had been sucked dry as all her strength was drained away. She held onto the edge of the table to prevent herself from falling. She had never imagined Tongning actually knew Mo Ting. How could she have such a strong backing? How could Mo Ting make a personal appearance? Through Nziheo's explanation, the brand representative was able to understand the entire situation. Naturally, he had his own considerations and thoughts. Replacing Li Danny immediately was the best move. But even though he already had a plan, he still decided to wait for Lu Che to arrive and see if he had any other requests. So while waiting for Lu Che to arrive, Li Danny and her assistant had never experienced such torment in their entire lives. Every minute and second felt like they were waiting for their judgment. She really wanted to find an excuse to leave, but they were already surrounded by onlookers. She really wanted to contact Lan Shi, but Lan Shi had brought up Hai Rui. Even if she contacted Ten Lan Zais, there was no way she could change anything by tonight. So Li Danny lowered her head and looked at her toes. After a while, she still couldn't give up. She suddenly grabbed onto Tongning and whispered, "What do I have to do for you to let me go? Tongning, on account that we are from the same company, let me go this once. I promise I won't go against you again." Tongning looked at Li Danny's arm and gently freed herself. "It's too late. You can't give others a chance to change. I really can't lose. I can't lose my job as a model. From the moment you humiliated Long Jie, you no longer have the right to be a human. You still want to be a model?" Tongning took a step back. Her voice was cold and filled with ridicule. "Li Danny, does an assistant not have any pride? You yourself also climbed up from the bottom. Can you afford to let others kneel to you? Since you've accepted this kneel, then you must pay a price worthy of this kneel." Of course, Lan Shi was also the reason why she refused to back down. Lan Shi had stepped all over her bottom line. If she continued to swallow her anger, would she still be Tongning? After hearing this, Li Danny's hand. He was trembling nonstop, because at this moment, she felt a chill running up her spine. Only now did she feel a lingering fear. "President, Mo, what will you do to me?" Tongning did not respond to Li Danny, but the people around her began to whisper amongst themselves. When it comes to dealing with people, Hai Rui has never been lenient. Exactly, what other consequences would there be for offending Hai Rui? Hurry up and announce your retreat from the industry. Do you still remember the king from before? Because of his arrogance, he didn't listen to Hai Rui's arrangements. What happened in the end? In one night, he turned into a star from yesterday, and is now working as a sanitation worker. Li Danny's eyes grew wide in fear. Her manager was even more exaggerated as she soaked the area she was kneeling on. She was so scared that she lost control of her bladder. That scene was as funny as it could get. As funny as it could get. Half an hour later, Lu Che arrived at the backstage of Hai Yi. The first thing he saw was Long Jie's swollen face. So he directly grabbed her from Nziheo's arms and asked, "How did you get hurt so badly? Who was it?" Hearing Lu Che's stern questioning, Li Danny's manager's expression could no longer be described as brilliant. As for Li Danny, she obviously lost her balance as she slid down to the ground. Very well. Lu Che looked around. He was also angry at the hurt and humiliation Long Jie had suffered. So his voice was lower than usual and slightly trembled. After listening to the entire story, he directly asked Li Danny and her manager, "Did you guys know that Long Man is my fiancé?" Fiancé? So it turned out, Tongning's assistant was Lu Che's fiancé? At this moment, All of their doubts seemed to have been answered. How did Tongning know Emoting, and why did Emoting help her out of politeness? Everything seemed to be explained. So it turned out, Long Jie was Lu Che's fiancé? This was something that Tongning had discussed with Emoting beforehand. After all, the debt between her and Lan Shi needed to be slowly settled, one debt at a time. So, she wasn't going to reveal her trump card today. So they told Lu Che to announce his relationship with Long Jie to let Lan Shi know that she had offended someone she shouldn't have. Before Lu Che could say anything to the brand representative, Li Danny's legs turned to jelly as she knelt on the floor and grabbed onto Tongning's skirt. Tongning, I beg of you, help me put in a good word. Slap me. You can slap me for as long as you want. As long as you help me plead for leniency. You've got the wrong person. Tongning hinted as she hinted that Li Danny should look for Long Jie. Long Jie let go of her right hand and lifted her head to look at Long Jie. However, Lu Che directly said to Li Danny, "Get lost, stay away from her." Not only this, Lu Che also announced to the public that if anyone dared to use Li Danny again, they would be going against him. Although Lu Che did not use Hai Rui's name, Emoting had already told him to satisfy Tongning in any way she wanted, so Lu Che's words were equivalent to Emoting's. In an instant, Li Danny became a taboo within the industry. No one dared to challenge Hai Rui's authority, and was replaced on the spot. Afterwards, contract cancellations began to arrive one after another. Li Danny couldn't take it anymore as she fainted in front of everyone. From start to finish, she only fainted in less than 20 minutes. So what if she was a famous model? In front of Hai Rui, she still had to kneel. She deserved it. The amount of information that night was too much. But those with eyes could see everything clearly. Hai Rui never interfered with other entertainment agencies' internal matters, but Li Danny was blind. Lu Che and Emoting did not mention Hai Rui, but their identities and status were already there. Yet, Li Danny was bullying someone else's fiancé. Did she really think she was a part of the fashion industry and entertainment industry? Framing people, humiliating people, slapping people and forcing them to kneel down. Li Danny couldn't deny everything that happened. As for what news would be released the next day, that would have to wait until tomorrow. But there was still another problem, Tongning's interview. Her original motive for going on the show had changed. Now, she only had one goal: to get Long Jie's grandfather back. At the same time, she wanted Lan Shi to kneel down. Chapter 176. The staff from Hai Yi quickly rushed Li Danny to the hospital. Afterwards, Long Jie grabbed onto Tongning's hand and asked, "Why did you come? You obviously knew this was Lan Shi's scheme. She didn't want you to appear on Feng Kai. Why did you have to be so stupid?" Tongning looked at Long Jie and gave her a hug. She gently rubbed her back. "You're the stupid one. Do I need you to endure so much for me? Do I need your protection? If anything happens to you and your grandfather, do you think I'll feel good about it? But now. Tongning let go of her and patted the back of her hand comfortingly. "Don't worry about anything. Let Lu Che accompany you to the hospital for treatment. While you're at it, you can enjoy Li Danny's ugly side." "But did you think I would let Lan Shi get away with it?" Tongning's words had a hidden meaning. It was clear what she was trying to say. "I am being protected by Emoting, and you are being protected by me. So, I will help you find your grandfather and make sure he is safe and sound. Let's go." Lu Che helped Long Jie walk out. But today's incident has been blown out of proportion. Tongning hit someone, shouldn't she do some PR? Won't her image be affected? Long Jie was still worried. "You should take care of yourself first." Lu Che led her into the car and went to the pharmacy to buy some swelling medicine and ice. "The madam is smarter than you think. She would never allow herself to be taken advantage of. You should take care of yourself and help her. Don't make her worry. She needs to focus on dealing with Lan Shi." Long Jie hugged onto the ice. She was a little tired, but she was also worried about Tongning and her grandfather. Lu Che noticed she was distracted, so he took the ice from her arms, hooked his arm around her head and pressed it against her face. Long Jie tried to avoid it in pain, but Lu Che held on to her and said in a low voice, Don't move, this will help the swelling go down. Long Jie thought back to the scene a moment ago, and the words Lu Che had said fiancé. Although she felt warm, she knew deep down, he was simply following Tang Ning and Mo Ting's orders. So, she reminded herself to be clear-headed. She was older than Lu Che and had neglected many aspects of her body, especially her figure. For someone like Lu Che, there was no way he would fall for her. Fiancé. Thank you, but I know it's fake. You don't have to worry. If you have a girlfriend, I can explain it to her. Lu Che looked at the bruises on Long Jie's face and tightened his grip. I don't have a girlfriend. But he wouldn't be interested in someone like me who's a little fat. Long Jie thought to herself. Plus, she had just escaped from danger. What was she thinking now? Grandfather and Tang Ning were still in danger. At the same time, at Chengtian Entertainment, Luo Hao walked into Lan Shi's office with a complicated expression. After placing some documents on the table, he placed his hands on his waist and said to Lan Shi, Tang Ning didn't let you down and appeared at Hai Yi. Feng Kai's interview is at 8 p.m. I don't think she'll make it. Isn't that great? Lan Shi sneered. Sure enough, this tactic worked against Tang Ning. But Li Danny was ruined by her. Luo Hao said gloomily. What do you mean? Lan Shi lifted her head with a complicated expression. Guess what Long Jie's identity is? Luo Hao asked as he supported himself on the edge of Lan Shi's table. Just tell me directly. She is the fiancée of Hai Rui's CEO, Mo Ting's assistant. Tang Ning contacted Hai Rui on the spot, and Lu Che arrived half an hour later. In order to get revenge for his fiancée, he directly kicked Danny out of the entertainment industry. Everyone in the industry knows about this, Luo Hao explained excitedly. After this battle, Tang Ning has completely broken your right arm. Now all that was left was him, her left arm. After hearing this, Lan Shi went online to search for relevant information. However, because of Hai Rui's planning, the information she found was not as good as the gossip in the industry. Tomorrow, Hai Rui would definitely release an announcement to explain the entire situation. Hai Rui had always done a good job protecting themselves, whether it was their artists or staff. That's not right. If Long Jie is Lu Che's fiancé, why didn't she mention Lu Che as soon as she was threatened? But if Long Jie isn't Lu Che's fiancé, why would Hai Rui stand up for a mere assistant? It's also a little unimaginable. I'm afraid this incident will take some time to sort out. But it's not easy for us to train an international model. Are we just going to let them destroy her? Lan Shi sat up from her office chair, feeling a little scared. Li Danny is no longer the most important point. The most important point right now is that we have threatened Long Jie's grandfather. This was the thing that gave Lan Shi a headache. Hai Rui was like a sleeping lion. It wasn't something she could afford to offend. After thinking for a moment, Lan Shi said confidently, we will not admit to this matter. I still feel that there is something fishy about Long Jie and Lu Che's relationship. Otherwise, there would be no reason for them to remain silent for so many days. Although I don't know how Tang Ning managed to get involved with Hai Rui, we can't afford to lose our footing right now. I think the most important thing right now is to deal with Tang Ning. If we allow her to get close to Hai Rui, it will be too late. Luo Hao tried to convince Lan Shi. Lan Shi glanced at Luo Hao. Her mind was in a mess. Back then, it was a moment of carelessness that caused her to sign Tang Ning to Qingtian. That was why she had caused so much trouble, and even ruined Li Danny. How about we release Long Jie's grandfather first? After all, he has no idea that we are keeping him under house arrest. No. Luo Hao stopped Lan Shi. He still has a use for him. But this old man has a heart condition. Lan Shi noticed that Long Jie's grandfather was taking his medication on time. If we release him, you may not be able to find another way to control Tang Ning. Will you still release him? Lan Shi thought for a moment before replying. Of course not. How can there not be sacrifices when doing something big? Luckily, we stopped Tang Ning from going on Feng Kai's interview. Otherwise, according to her temper, after today's incident, there's no way she would let it go. Lan Shi suddenly felt a little angry. Is it because we haven't been ruthless enough with this slut? Luo Hao, we need to prepare for the second step of our plan. However, just as the couple were discussing the next step of their plan, Luo Hao's assistant suddenly knocked on the office door. Director, President, something big has happened. Come in and talk. The young assistant did not say a word. He simply turned on the television in Lan Shi's office and switched to the live broadcast of Feng Kai's interview. At this moment, Tongning was taking careful steps as the host invited her into the studio to take a seat. Lan Shi looked at the time and then looked at Tongning on the television in disbelief. What is happening? How can Tongning still go on the interview? Hurry and find someone to cut the show and replace the host. Drag Tongning out. How was this possible? Didn't Tongning go to Hai Yi Center? Could she have transmigrated? This is an official program. We can't do anything about it, Luo Hao said calmly. Luo Hao warned Lan Shi calmly. Today, we stepped on her assistant. Think about it, how will she get back at Qingtian and you? She wouldn't dare. Lan Shi said stubbornly. She wouldn't dare? What would Tongning not dare to do? Chapter 177. Seeing Lan Shi in this state, Luo Hao immediately made a phone call to confirm with people within the industry. However, he discovered both he and Lan Shi had made a fatal mistake. We both calculated the time incorrectly. What do you mean? Lan Shi didn't quite understand what Luo Hao meant. The reason why Tongning dared to appear at Hai Yi so confidently was because there was no clash in time. Feng Kai's interview had already been rescheduled from the first few episodes and had been delayed by an hour. However, we had overlooked this detail. It seemed everyone remembered that Feng Kai's broadcast time was 8 p.m. So, even though they had announced the change a long time ago, Lan Shi did not take it to heart and thought Feng Kai's broadcast time had not changed. This Tongning is way too smart. What should we do now? All we can do is watch as Tongning appears on the show? Lan Shi angrily slammed her hands on the office desk. She had put in so much effort and even resorted to kidnapping. Yet in the end, she had been played by Tongning? In reality, when Tongning found out about Long Jie being threatened, she was already on her way to the television station. As soon as she found out Li Danny's show was at 7 p.m. and her interview was after 9 p.m., she immediately headed to Hai Yi Hall. The only thing she found strange was, why did Lan Shi leave her with a 2-hour time difference, allowing her to travel back and forth between the two venues? Was this Lan Shi's so-called obstruction? After putting in so much effort, was she really trying to stop her from participating in Feng Kai's recording? Was she serious? And Zihao also laughed. According to my understanding of Lan Shi this time, she definitely made a mistake. What kind of mistake? Tongning asked. She probably didn't know Feng Kai's broadcast had been changed, and Zihao couldn't help but laugh. After leaving Hai Yi, Tongning originally planned to rush to the television station as Zihao had arranged. But as soon as she entered the parking lot, she spotted Mo Ting's car. So, after giving Zihao a heads up, she pulled open the car door and sat in the front passenger seat. Didn't you say you didn't need to come? Mo Ting turned his head and looked at Tongning. Using his warm palms, he lifted her palms and examined them. Didn't you bring bodyguards? Why did you have to do it yourself? Does your hand hurt? Tongning originally thought Mo Ting would be concerned about Long Jie, Li Danny and Lu Chei's performance. Who would have thought? The first thing he asked was whether her hand hurt. It was very satisfying at the time, but now I'm a little numb. Tongning told the truth. After all, she had slapped him 5 times with all her strength. It was impossible for her to not feel anything at all. Mo Ting held onto her hand and rubbed it gently. His expression was helpless but doting. I never expected you to do it yourself. Do you really think I have a good temper? Tongning smiled innocently. That's because someone knows that I have a backer. That's why he dares to do it. Mo Ting glared at her. His tone was a little doting and reproachful. Of course, it was a far cry from how he normally acted in the office. You never learn to be good. Instead of using a foolproof plan, do you insist on making me worry? Mo Ting let go of her hand and focused on driving. He needed to take Tongning to Feng Kai for the interview. There are some things that you can only remember the pain that others have suffered because of you. This time, Long Jie had suffered for her. She had endured the humiliation. and was even threatened by Lan Shi's family. Yet, she had never considered betraying her. So not only did her hand hurt, even if it broke, she wouldn't feel it wasn't worth it. Mo Ting knew what kind of person she was. He also knew that she would disregard her own safety for the people around her. However, in the past, she was all alone. But now, she had him behind her. Plus, Lan Shi is still holding on to Long Jie's grandfather. Aren't you already on your way to ask her for him? Tongning was stunned for a second. She suddenly leaned against Mo Ting's shoulder. Sometimes, after dealing with these monsters for too long, I feel like I'm no longer human. But the way I dealt with Li Danny and the way I dealt with Lan Shi, I don't regret it at all. I want Lan Shi to know that it's fine for her to touch me, but if she touches the people around me, I won't let her rest in peace. Mo Ting looked straight ahead as he drove. His voice was firm and calm. No matter if you are simple or complicated, as long as you are still Tongning, to me, there is no difference. Tongning's heart was moved, but she didn't know how to express her love for Mo Ting. So, all she could do was bite down on his shoulder. Mo Ting did not cry out in pain. His lips simply curved upwards. He understood how it felt. Sometimes, when you like someone, you'll suddenly not know what to do. It was because of Lan Shi's mistake that the scene in front of them happened today. Tongning's appearance at Feng Kai's interview. After putting some effort into her makeup, Tongning appeared in front of the audience in a light purple A-line dress. She had a light touch of makeup on and her long, silky hair flowed down her back. She faced the Beijing audience in her most natural state. As she smiled, her dimples appeared. The two hosts in the studio had already prepared a question board. They had already organized the segments that Tongning would be going through, and the questions that she would be answering. As for the studio, they also put in a lot of effort. They placed posters of Tongning's magazines and advertisements. They were extremely meticulous. The time was 9 p.m., and the interview officially began. As it was a live broadcast, both the host and the guests had to be extremely careful with their words. Because of this, a lot of celebrities accidentally revealed their secrets due to their carelessness. As a result, a lot of rumors began to spread. Of course, Tongning soon returned to her usual calm self. No one would have imagined that just an hour ago, she was slapping Li Danny and her assistant across the face at Hai Yi's show. After some small talk, the host quickly moved on to the warm-up segment. He then asked Tongning, "Tongning, I vaguely remember 3 months ago, you were still a bride waiting to be married off. But all of a sudden, you announced your comeback. Afterwards, you were caught up in an intense battle with Tianyi. What kind of situation did it take for you to make such a firm decision to start afresh?" "Can I really tell you this?" After hearing the question, Tongning suddenly let out a gentle laugh. "Take note, our show is all about telling the truth. Otherwise, all your answers may be taken by your fans and slapped in the face." The host smiled as he reminded Tongning. In his hand was a cute hand clapper. Of course, the dubbing was to make the audience laugh. Tongning was stunned for a moment before replying, "It's nothing special. I simply experienced a betrayal that many people have experienced. Afterwards, I grew up. I am a person that will definitely let go if I say I want to." Okay, that was just a warm-up question. Next up, we are going to ask an explosive question. Are you married? Chapter 178. After asking this question, the host froze for a moment. She felt this question was within the scope of breaking the news. It was like she was trying to force Tongning into a corner. But this was completely dependent on the guest's intelligence and EQ. The 100-plus fans in the live broadcast room looked at Tongning. The viewers in front of their televisions looked at Tongning. Even Mo Ting, who was waiting in his car, couldn't help but smile when he heard the broadcast. He had previously asked Tongning how she would answer this question during the interview. At that time, Tongning simply smiled mysteriously. But now she couldn't hide anymore. Mo Ting's heart was filled with anticipation, but of course, he was also worried for Tongning. But in the end, he still decided to trust her. Why are all the other guests so gentle with their questions? Yet when it comes to me, they're asking about my ex and whether I'm married. Tongning looked helpless. But everyone could tell that she wasn't actually impatient. She was simply trying to liven up the atmosphere. Don't try to hide and don't beat around the bush. Hurry up and answer. The host did not buy her act. Actually, from the moment Tongning appeared on the show, the host had already let out a sigh of relief. Tongning was an extremely mature interviewee. She knew what to do, knew how to liven up the atmosphere, knew how to interact with people, and most importantly, she was extremely approachable. On the surface, she looked like a girl next door. I'm married, Tongning replied straightforwardly. Everyone's eyes grew wide as they pretended to be surprised. They never expected her to directly admit it like this. Mo Ting's heart skipped a beat as he listened to the live broadcast. But a moment later he smiled helplessly and dotingly. He really couldn't do anything about this cunning girl. Under normal circumstances, when an artist really had a problem, they would think of a way to resolve it instead of directly admitting it like Tongning did. So, on a show like this, those that directly admitted it were usually fake. Above all, Tongning's tone sounded like someone had just asked her if she had eaten. It was extremely casual and normal, making it hard to believe, even though she was telling the truth. You're married? The host pretended to be surprised as she smiled and asked. In that case, who are you married to? The most powerful person in the entertainment industry. Tongning once again told the truth. But after hearing this, the host deliberately played around with her hair. Isn't that me? The live stream room burst into laughter. It turned out, his dear wife not only knew how to be a good model, she also knew how to create an effect that was hard to distinguish between the real and the fake. Sometimes if you exaggerated things, even if they were the truth, no one would believe you. Afterwards, the host noticed the ring on Tongning's finger. Hey, you're wearing a ring? You look so real. Come, hold it up for everyone to see. Tongning did not hesitate at all as she held up her right hand with the wedding ring on it. Everyone could clearly see what the ring looked like. Actually, it really was a wedding ring. Mo Ting, who was sitting in the car, couldn't help but touch the ring on his left ring finger. The two of them seemed to understand each other. And Zihao, who was watching the live broadcast, was terrified as he broke out in a cold sweat. How could she be so brave? Most importantly, everything she said was the truth, but she was treated as a joke by everyone. Just now we asked a relatively easy question, but Tongning easily dealt with it. So, from now on, we are going to ask a few questions that may offend people. Think carefully before you answer. The host suddenly hid his smile, and became a lot more serious. Although Feng Kai's questions were sharp, the host knew how to respect the guests and kindly reminded them. Please go ahead. Actually, we have also heard some bad rumors. For example, after signing with Cheng Tian, the agency did not have high hopes for you. In fact, there were rumors that the resources that were already in your hands were taken over by someone else. So what is the truth? Can you explain it to us? With the mention of Cheng Tian, the ones that should be nervous were Lan Shi and Luo Hao. According to Tongning's EQ, it was easy for her to deal with a question like this. However, through the TV screen, Lan Shi noticed that Tongning's gentle gaze had suddenly turned cold. In fact, she even sneered. Tongning knew. It was finally time for her to ask for Mo Ting. Of course, not only Lan Shi, even Zihao had no idea how Tongning was going to ask Lan Shi for Mo Ting. In fact, he couldn't believe it. How was this possible? How could she make Lan Shi hand over Long Jie's grandfather, just by sitting in the studio? Actually, the fact that I am sitting here is the best answer, Tongning said with a smile. President Lan is a very understanding person and a very good boss. That's why we haven't completely fallen out with each other like the rumors say. It's just that there is competition within the agency. This is normal. As the CEO, President Lan needs to look at the big picture. I can understand that. Speaking of which, I also want to mention something very heartwarming. Tongning suddenly faced the camera and gave an example. My assistant, Long Jie, has a grandfather at home. For the past 2 days, she has been unable to contact him. My assistant was so anxious that she looked everywhere for him. She even went to the police. Tongning emphasized the word police. The police have already filed a case, just as they were about to launch an investigation. However, we found out from President Lan that in order to give Long Jie a surprise, she brought my assistant's grandfather to Beijing to take care of him. We almost had a misunderstanding. Look, President Lan is such a considerate and warm-hearted person. But in order not to make President Lan feel troubled, I will get my assistant to take my grandfather home in a moment. Thank you, President Lan, for the surprise. We appreciate your kindness and I will always remember it, Tongning said in seriousness as she expressed her gratitude towards Lan Shi. However, in her words, there was a hidden meaning that only the few of them could understand. After watching this, Lan Shi was tempted to smash the TV. Tongning was threatening Lan Shi to hand over Mo Ting by calling the police. It was just like how she had threatened Long Jie to betray Tongning. Tongning was giving her an eye for an eye. Not long after, Tongning mentioned that Long Jie's grandfather was at her place. It was obvious, she wanted everyone to keep an eye on her. After all, Tongning had openly asked for Long Jie's grandfather on TV. If anything happened to him, she would be held responsible. So, she didn't dare to do anything to him. In the end, Tongning said she would come to pick him up immediately. If she didn't hand him over, the public would continue to speculate. A response like this created a phenomenon in the industry. The sensitive paparazzi would never let her off the hook. What an A-grade model. What an intelligent Tongning. She never expected Tongning would do something that she couldn't resist. She had no choice but to hand over Long Jie's grandfather. Of course, there were those that hated Tongning and those that admired her. And Zihao never expected Tongning to be so smart as to solve the problem of finding Long Jie's grandfather. What was she looking for? She wanted Lan Shi to hand him over on her own. In fact, she wanted Lan Shi to come out unscathed. She wanted Lan Shi to suffer a double loss. If there was a problem with Long Jie's grandfather, then there was a problem with her. Chapter 179. After hearing Tongning's words, the host could sense something was amiss. Why would the CEO of a company give a surprise to an artist's assistant? Why did she kidnap someone's family for no reason? She even caused someone to call the police. It was obvious, this was a dirty trick used by the entertainment industry to control Tongning. The host had been in the industry for many years, so he had seen through a lot of things. Especially after hearing Tongning's example, he knew deep down that Tongning was directly asking Lan Shi for someone. This smart woman used the most gentle method to do something that no one could resist. Since this is all a scandal and you've already clarified it, let's move on to the next question. Tongning, you need to keep up with me. After a serious question, let's move on to an easy one. As long as it's easy, it's not easy. Tongning played along with the joke. The host laughed as he picked up the whiteboard and flipped it to the other side. It was a photo of Tongning and Mo Ting from the LM commercial. Regarding this backview dream man, isn't it time you gave us an answer? The beauties on set have been waiting for a long time. Tongning covered her mouth shyly as she acted like she was in a difficult position. Ah. Do you think you can run away? Quick, tell us who this is so everyone can see his face. The host teased mischievously. His cooperation with Tongning was flawless. Tongning felt her head hurt as she asked her fans in a quiet voice. What should I do? Do you guys really want to know? Her fans nodded their heads continuously. Okay. Tongning was finally ready to give in. However, her okay was only one word, yet it made Zihao's heart almost stop. Mo Ting's attention was also drawn to the screen. I don't think it's appropriate for me to say his name directly. How about this? I'll give him a phone call on set and ask if I can say his name. What do you guys think? If he says no, then you guys can stop making things difficult for me. Tongning smiled as she pulled out her phone and waved it in front of everyone. Oh, the fans replied in unison. So you really want to connect to him on set? The host had obviously never seen a model as direct as Tongning. She was extremely cooperative with his questions and did not evade his questions at all. Really? Otherwise, even in my dreams, I would dream that fans would chase after me. I'm a little scared. After speaking, she found the name she had changed in advance and made a phone call in front of everyone. On the other end of the phone, Mo Ting was sitting in his car listening to the live broadcast. As soon as he saw Tongning's phone call, He lowered his voice and tried his best to make his voice sound different from the one he had used on High E. Hello. This voice was deeper and more mellow, so it sounded more magnetic and tasteful. At that moment, a terrifying scream erupted from the scene. Tongning made a shushing gesture and asked, "My name is Tongning. It's like this, after the commercial we filmed, the entire nation wants to know who you are. Are you willing to reveal your true identity?" On the other side of the phone, Mo Ting was silent for 2 seconds before asking, "Do you want others to find out my identity?" The moment this question was asked, screams rang out again. This kind of conversation sounded extremely ambiguous. "I want to avoid being chased after by your fans," Tongning replied honestly. In reality, Tongning had purposely not told Mo Ting that she would do this. She wanted to leave the decision in Mo Ting's hands. If Mo Ting admitted to it, she would not run away. "You really want to? You two don't make this kind of ambiguous conversation. Hurry up and get back to the topic at hand. Should we announce this identity or not? Hurry up and make a decision." The host quickly stopped the two. Wasn't this a blatant display of affection? Tongning thought Mo Ting was more willing to reveal his identity, but she never expected. "I won't reveal it," Mo Ting replied straightforwardly. "I'm sorry, I don't want my private life to be exposed too much." Although he wanted to tell everyone that he was Tongning's husband and the CEO of Hai Rui, if he actually had the chance to do so, he would feel heartache for all the sacrifices Tongning had made. After all, this wasn't what Tongning truly wanted. She wanted equality. She wanted to shine brightly. Hearing this response, not only did the fans not feel disappointed, they even started to fantasize about this mysterious man. "Tongning and I simply collaborated on a simple commercial. I'm already married, so I hope everyone doesn't make things difficult for Tongning." Since the man had already given such an official response, the host couldn't continue to pressure him. So he simply made a few small requests. "Can you tell us what kind of person Tongning is in your heart? Does she have any little tricks or hobbies that no one knows about?" Tongning had a smile on her face the entire time as she listened nervously to the host's questions. "She is very honest. As for her hobbies, I can't let you guys know about them. Otherwise, I might get beaten up in private." The audience burst into laughter, suddenly alleviating the awkwardness caused by Mo Ting saying he didn't want to reveal his identity. Finally, after Tongning hung up the phone, the host asked, "Describe your relationship with the Backview Dream Man in one word or one sentence." "A lifelong, inseparable confidant." Tongning revealed one of her relationships with Mo Ting. In this world, there wouldn't be another person that understood and loved her more than Mo Ting. "Okay then. Even though we didn't find out the true identity of the Backview Dream Man today, at least everyone heard his breathtaking voice. I hope everyone can respect his choice." I also have a piece of good news for everyone. LM's full commercial will be released on Monday next week. Everyone can once again lick the screen at his back. The entire interview lasted for 40 minutes. Apart from the sharp questions, there were also questions about life and ideals. Of course, Tongning had always done a good job in this area, so she managed to leave a good impression in front of the audience. By the time the interview ended, it was almost 10 p.m. Just as Tongning was about to leave within Ziheo's protection, the host held her back and said, "I've seen plenty of assistants' family members accidentally taken away, but I've never seen anyone act like you. How dare you challenge them in public and force them to return to you? Although you managed to get him, your path will only get more difficult." I know. Tongning was well aware of what was going on. "It's rare to see someone as calm as you." After speaking, the host pulled out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Tongning. "Right now, what you need is an international stage. I know a few international masters. If you want to go on an international show, give me a call." Tongning was well aware that no matter if it was hitting Li Danny or bringing up Mo Ting, even though she had tried to salvage the situation in time, it would definitely be used by Lan Shi to create a huge wave. But since she dared to challenge Lan Shi, there was nothing to be afraid of. Chapter 180. Not long after, Tongning left the television station. However, just as she boarded Mo Ting's car, she was pulled into a strong embrace and kissed. After getting used to it for a while, she felt the familiar warmth and smell of his body. So she began to open up and cater to Mo Ting's kiss. It wasn't until both of them had lost all the air in their chests that Mo Ting finally stopped. He placed his nose against Tongning's as he whispered in a sexy and raspy voice, "This is the last time. If there is a next time, I will definitely tell the world. You are my Mo Ting's woman." In the dark, Tongning held onto Mo Ting's handsome face and smiled. "Whether I say it or not, I will always be your woman from head to toe, completely intact." Mo Ting reluctantly let go of her and started driving. Tomorrow, Hai Rui will release a statement explaining what happened at Hai Yi Center tonight. You don't need to worry. Of course I'm not worried. But I don't think Lan Shi will easily believe the relationship between Lu Che and Long Jie. After all, when Long Jie's grandfather was kidnapped, Long Jie did not make use of Lu Che's background. Also, tonight, I took the risk of connecting with you live and giving you a chance to admit that you are my family. If you didn't take advantage of it, others might have realized that the voice you heard at Hai Yi Center was extremely similar to the voice you heard in Feng Kai. Are you blaming me? Mo Ting couldn't help but laugh. Yes, I am. You know, I was already mentally prepared to admit to the world that he was my husband. You weren't mentally prepared because you trusted me and didn't want to say it out loud. Mo Ting glanced at Tongning and exposed her thoughts. But I am still very happy. My wife, who seems to have nothing to do with the world, finally has the pride to show off to others that she is my husband. Sorry, Mrs. Mo, I didn't let you become famous overnight. Tongning couldn't help but let out a gentle laugh as she leaned her head against Mo Ting's body. I'm going to treat you like an audience. Do you know what I want to say to the audience the most right now? Mo Ting is mine. I will dote on him, love him, take care of him and understand him for the rest of his life. None of you should even think about it. Mo Ting tilted his head slightly as he paid attention to the road. At the same time he looked into Tongning's eyes. Her amber eyes seemed to glow under the dim lights. Because in this relationship she had never treated herself as the weaker party. She never felt that it was normal for her to be doted on and pampered. She simply loved Mo Ting as much as he loved her. Even if he had to exhaust all of his strength, he wouldn't hesitate. In the past 32 years, this was the first time Mo Ting had experienced what it meant to be doted on. I saw it. Tongning is going around flirting with people. Previously, she had one at home, and now she's involved with a married man. Luo Hao and Lan Shi watched Feng Kai's live broadcast multiple times. But she has never admitted to a relationship with a man. Lan Shi stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out. There was a sinister look on her face, but we don't have any concrete evidence. She is, after all, an artist of Chengtian. It's easier for us to follow her than the paparazzi. As long as she has a guilty conscience, it's only a matter of time before she gets caught. So right now we have two things to follow. Firstly, we need to find out if Long Jie and Lu Che's relationship is real, and if Tongning has anything to do with Hai Rui. Secondly, we need to find out who Tongning's man is and expose her relationship. She has never admitted to having a boyfriend before, but it turns out, her private life is so messy. Luo Hao, let Tongning attend JK's opening show at London Fashion Week. Only by lowering her guard will we have a chance to take advantage of it. If nothing had happened to Danny, this show would have been Danny's, Luo Hao said regretfully. Tomorrow, I will find some time to visit Danny. Lan Shi's lips twitched. Originally, she wanted to say something, but Nziheo suddenly gave her a phone call. Lan Shi picked up the phone. Nziheo simply said, President Lan, we are here to take Long Jie's grandfather home. You don't need to take care of him. Lan Shi sneered as she hung up the phone. She then instructed Luo Hao, go release him. Go release him. These three simple words displayed Lan Shi's endless disdain and anger. But Tongning has already gone this far. How can I not release him? She was the almighty CEO of Chengtian. Yet she was being forced by a mere model to take a step back and suffer at every turn. Luo Hao glared at Lan Shi before turning around and leaving the office. He then drove Long Jie's grandfather out of his villa. However, before returning the old man to Long Jie, Luo Hao said to him, "For the sake of fame and fortune, your granddaughter is willing to be a kept woman and be a mistress. Old man, you need to be careful and stop her." The old man was so angry that his face turned green. Afterwards, Luo Hao drove the old man to Qingtian Entertainment. Tongning, and Zihao and Long Jie were all waiting in the waiting room. As their eyes met, Luo Hao's voice was extremely cold. "I've already sent him back unharmed. Is President Lan in a good mood?" Tongning asked Luo Hao with a deeper meaning. "What do you think? Don't step on my bottom line again," Tongning simply told Luo Hao. Although Luo Hao's expression was gloomy, he did not say anything sarcastic. He simply told Tongning, "Get ready to go to London for JK's opening show. You have been lacking international resources. Now that you've gotten rid of Li Danny, the best resources will naturally belong to you and Hua Yuan." After hearing Luo Hao's words, Tongning felt a little sarcastic. How could Lan Shi still think of giving her resources? "I will follow up with the progress," and Zihao immediately said to Luo Hao. Luo Hao scoffed as he turned around and boarded his car. Tongning watched as Luo Hao disappeared into the distance and suddenly said to Zihao, "Although I can anger Lan Shi, I can't shake her foundation." "But you destroyed Li Danny. At least, Cheng Tian will be set back a few years. It's not easy for Lan Shi to train a model," and Zihao replied. "In that case, why is Lan Shi being so generous and allowing me to appear on the international runway? It's not for you to get what you want." And Zihao had completely forgotten about the fact that Lan Shi was once his friend. Tongning turned her head and glanced at Zihao without saying another word. Meanwhile, Long Jie immediately ran over to hug her only relative. "Grandfather. Are you okay?" Grandfather Long was stunned for a moment, before pushing Long Jie away. His expression was complicated and sad. "Xiaoman, grandfather wants to talk to you in private. Let's go, I'll take you home." And Zihao opened the door of the nanny van, and allowed the three of them to board. As the nanny van passed by Hyatt Regency first, Tongning was allowed to step out first, and Zihao escorted the two to the front door of the apartment. At this time he happened to bump into Lu Che appearing outside Long Jie's apartment in the middle of the night. It seemed, he was deliberately waiting for Long Jie to return. Chapter 181. As soon as Grandfather Long looked at Lu Che, he was reminded of Luo Hao's words. He looked unhappy as he questioned Lu Che impolitely. "Young man, don't you think it's inconvenient for you to be waiting outside my granddaughter's building in the middle of the night?" Lu Che didn't understand why Grandfather Long was hostile towards him, so he immediately explained. "I heard that Long Jie was going to pick you up, so I came over to see if you needed any help." "No need, please go home." Long Jie smiled awkwardly at Lu Che. She didn't know what was wrong with her grandfather. Of course, Lu Che couldn't stay any longer. After saying goodnight, he quickly drove away from the two. "Long man, tell me honestly, are you entangled with this man?" "Grandfather, what are you talking about? Mr. Luo told me that you are a mistress," Grandfather Long said as he pointed to Long Jie's nose. "From now on, don't ever see that man again." Long Jie was a little confused. At the same time, she was a little angry. She never expected Luo Hao to be so despicable. "And your employer, Tongning, President Lan is such a good woman. Why did you bully her and go against her?" "Grandfather, did you know that you were placed under house arrest by President Lan? President Lan used you to threaten me and frame Tongning? Tongning was the one who thought of a way to save you." Long Jie explained anxiously. "House arrest? I think there's something wrong with your brain. President Lan takes good care of me, and even takes me everywhere to have fun. You didn't even think about this." Long Jie. All of a sudden, she didn't know how to explain the deception in the entertainment industry. She was just very helpless. The elderly were too easily biased, using the false information they got from outsiders to hurt their loved ones. After taking care of her grandfather and putting him to bed, Long Jie gave Lu Che a phone call and said apologetically, "Sorry, my grandfather's attitude wasn't good today. Over the past few days, Lan Shi and Luo Hao have instilled a lot of nonsense into his mind. Right now, he has a lot of opinions about me. As long as you're okay, Lu Che replied nonchalantly. On the other side of the phone, Lu Che replied nonchalantly, I'm playing games right now. Rest early. Okay, good night. Lu Che's attitude made Long Jie feel uneasy. But, what did it have to do with her? In any case, Lu Che would never like her. Actually, after hanging up the phone, Lu Che was just as distracted. He couldn't say that he hadn't been splashed with cold water by Grandfather Long. He was simply being nice, but he never expected it would cause such a misunderstanding. There was a strange feeling in his heart. It seemed to be a little different from his usual bad mood. Late at night after a bath, Tongning immediately snuggled into Mo Ting's warm embrace. She then rested her head on his arm and said, This doesn't seem like Lan Shi's style. How could she give me an international show? I thought she wanted to rip me to shreds. However, JK's show was truly too tempting for me. Mo Ting hugged Tongning and wrapped his strong legs around her, trapping her soft body in his embrace. If she gives it to you, just take it. Mo Ting knew, no matter what Lan Shi did, she would only push Tongning into Hai Rue's embrace. Of course, Tongning was well aware of this. Then, London, England. Will you accompany me? When? Mo Ting asked. Tongning thought for a moment before replying. I think we'll depart next Wednesday. It's nearing the end of the year, so there are more award ceremonies and gatherings. It's okay if you can't go, Tongning said in a quiet voice. Actually, every time we go to a country, you always have to do a lot of preparation work. I feel bad just looking at it. This time, I will be in England for a week. You should stay in Beijing and not tire yourself out. Mo Ting did not say a word, but it didn't mean he didn't have any thoughts. But if Mo Ting didn't go, what would Lan Shi's paparazzi do? Wouldn't his hopes be dashed? The next morning, People Vanguard Daily published an article about Li Danny's blacklisting at Hai Fashion Week. As Hai Rue had embellished the story, the media focused on how Li Danny humiliated Tongning's manager, Long Jie. They described how Li Danny framed, slapped, humiliated and even forced Long Jie to kneel down. With this as the backdrop, Tongning retaliated. The most shocking thing was, Hai Rue pointed out that Tongning's assistant, Long Man, and the CEO's assistant, Lu Che, were engaged and Lu Che had a reason for saving the day. Tongning and the CEO of Hai Rue, Mo Ting, did not have a special relationship. They were just friends, so there was no need to explain it to the public. To protect their employees, Hai Rue decided to reveal the truth and let the public judge for themselves. Meanwhile, the clothing brand that was affected by Li Danny stepped out and announced that they had used the wrong people. Because of Li Danny's character, they decided to blacklist her forever. Of course, although the majority of netizens expressed their understanding towards Tongning's actions, it also created a serious problem for Tongning. Who would have thought the normally quiet Tongning would have such a side to her? 5 slaps in a row. How satisfying. Tongning must have reached the end of her tolerance. That's why she retaliated like this. I think she's very cool. I've met many celebrities and seen people treat their assistants like humans, but I've never seen someone so protective. Let's not talk too much. I can only describe her in one word. Cool. But Tongning also hits people. Her actions are no different than Li Danny's. Mother above. That's because she hasn't been able to bully your loved one. Otherwise, you would have blown her up for everyone to see. I'm the only one that doesn't understand. Why is Tongning's assistant being ordered around by Li Danny like a servant? Without the approval of the higher-ups, there shouldn't be a fight like this, right? Are you guys still discussing it? Today is Monday, LM's official commercial has already been released. Hurry up and lick the screen. At the same time, Tongning's ratings for Feng Kai were released. Her popularity was almost on par with the Best Actress. After LM's commercial was released, the number of views increased rapidly. In just one day, it had reached over 10 million. Regardless of everything else, Tongning had temporarily gained a foothold in Beijing. At least, in terms of popularity and topics of discussion, there was no need to worry about her disappearing from the public eye for a short period of time. This was originally something worth celebrating for Cheng Tian Entertainment. Although Li Danny had unfortunately fallen into the hands of her own people, Tong Ning's momentum was still very strong. If things continued like this, it was only a matter of time before she overtook Li Danny. In just 3 months, Tong Ning was like a hot knife through butter. Everyone in the industry was shocked. Of course, it also made many jealous. Chapter 182. This made Lan Shi realize the hidden value of Tong Ning. So, she wanted to grab hold of Tong Ning's weakness, so she could control her in the future. The day before their trip to England, Long Jie complained to Tong Ning. Recently, I've noticed someone has been following me. Tong Ning furrowed her brows. She knew exactly why Long Jie felt this way. Lan Shi had always suspected that her and Lu Che's engagement was fake. It's been so many days, have you not seen Lu Che at all? Tong Ning asked. That day was the day we picked Grandpa up. Lu Che was kind enough to wait downstairs in the middle of winter to see if we were safe. But Grandpa believed Luo Hao, that bitch, and said that I was Lu Che's mistress. Now Grandpa refuses to go home and keeps an eye on me. Long Jie, the main reason I asked Lu Che to announce that he and you are engaged, apart from protecting Ting and I, is so that you can be protected. If you think this is a problem, Tong Ning said. It's not a problem. In fact, I'm afraid Lu Che will be at a disadvantage. Long Jie waved her hand. Then, what if I asked the two of you to pretend to live together? Ha! It's just an act. The reason Tong Ning mentioned this was because she felt Long Jie had feelings for Lu Che, so she wanted to give the two of them a chance. I don't think that's a good idea. Long Jie's cheeks turned red. The two of you are engaged, it's perfectly normal. Hearing this, Long Jie was speechless. She quickly waved her hands. Tong Ning, don't do this. Otherwise, it will be even more awkward when I see Lu Che in the future. I truly treat Lu Che as a friend. If you want me to put on an act, I can cooperate. But pretending to live together is a bit too much. Tong Ning was in the middle of packing her luggage. After hearing Long Jie's explanation, she nodded her head. Don't blame me for not giving you a chance. What are you thinking? Lu Che is younger than me. Long Jie acted like she had heard something unbelievable. In reality, the more flustered she acted, the more it proved that she had her own thoughts. She simply felt the difference between them was too big, so that was why she felt inferior. One day, I'll ask Lu Che what type of girl he likes. Hey, Big Boss won't be accompanying you this time? Long Jie purposely changed the topic to avoid the awkwardness. Tong Ning thought about the pile of invitations on Mo Ting's desk and shook her head. It's almost the end of the year, and there are more activities. I don't want him to be so tired. Also, in order to prevent him from following us, I brought the flight forward. Don't forget. Don't worry, I've packed everything. Long Jie finally let out a sigh of relief that Tong Ning no longer had to worry about her relationship with Lu Che. Not to mention the fact that she was almost 30 years old, didn't have a high education and had no achievements in anything. Most importantly, she loved to eat. She didn't think that an elite like Lu Che would be interested in her. Sometimes, it was true that she had the urge to pursue beautiful things. However, even though she knew that there was a gap between them, she still had to go for it. She felt that she had already passed the age of persistence. Not long after Long Jie left Hyatt Regency, Lu Che brought over a plate of seafood sashimi from Japan. Seeing Tong Ning alone in the living room, his expression darkened. Wasn't Long Jie here a moment ago? Why did she leave? Tong Ning looked at the seafood sashimi. It was obviously not something that a nutritious person like her would eat. So she smiled at Lu Che. She just returned home. Why don't you chase after her? Forget it then, Lu Che replied. Lu Che, can you tell me the truth? Do you feel towards Long Jie? Lu Che interrupted awkwardly before Tong Ning could finish her sentence. He then looked down at his shiny leather shoes and replied, Actually, I just felt sorry for her when I saw her being bullied. Just sorry? What else could it be? Tong Ning lowered her head helplessly. She already knew that Lu Che's EQ wasn't that high, but it was too low. It's fine, I can't eat any of this. You can give it to Longjia. What if her grandfather misunderstands? It's fine. After speaking, Lu Che turned and left Hyatt Regency, leaving Tongning staring blankly at the fresh seafood feast. After finishing his work, Mo Ting came out of the study room. Seeing Tongning's helpless expression, he couldn't help but approach her from behind and hug her. What's wrong? You don't like to eat this either. Tongning replied as she pulled out her phone and gave Longjia a phone call. Lu Che sent some seafood over by air. Do you want to bring it home to try? Longjia had just returned home. Her focus wasn't on the seafood, but on Lu Che. She realized she couldn't help but feel tempted. But after holding it in for a while, she still felt it wasn't right, so she rejected. Forget it, I'm already home. I can't eat it, and Ting doesn't like it either. It won't be fresh overnight. Otherwise, I would have to throw it away. Don't throw it away. I'll be right there. Longjia quickly changed her clothes and returned to Hyatt Regency. She packed up all the seafood that Lu Che had sent and took it home. However, she didn't take it out to eat. Instead, she placed it in the fridge as if she had a crush on him. When you have a crush on someone, even if they were to give you a normal piece of tissue, you would treasure it and keep it so that you could dry it and turn it into a specimen. After having a shower, Tongning lay in bed thinking about Longjia and Lu Che. Suddenly, she felt a cold sensation on her chest. It turned out, Mo Ting had undone her robe and his warm hands slid down to her waist and wrapped around her. Tongning looked at Mo Ting with misty eyes. She was a little flustered, but of course, she was also a little expectant. Since you're going to be gone for so long, shouldn't you compensate me in advance? In reality, Tongning didn't actually need Mo Ting's help. Tongning's desire for him was already the same. As long as two people were serious about each other, even a simple glance was enough to trigger an intense tsunami. Soon, the two robes were undone and scattered on the big white bed. Their bodies were pressed tightly against each other, their sweat intertwined, and their hands were intertwined. This made the love seem especially intense in the dark, and it made one's face blush and heart race. Neither of them liked to talk, so Mo Ting was more familiar with Tongning's moans and breaths. Especially when she couldn't help but bite his shoulder when they were aroused. Mo Ting couldn't help but fall deeply in love with the woman in his arms from head to toe. He wanted to blend in with her like this until the end of time. But the thing that made Tongning's heart flutter the most was, no matter what Mo Ting demanded, no matter how embarrassing they were after falling from the clouds, he would always pull her into his embrace. Chapter 183. He hugged her tightly. There was no expression or comfort, but the action of a tight hug was better than 1,000 words. A moment later, Mo Ting suddenly sat up with Tongning in his arms. Just as he was about to get off the bed, Tongning held him back. Mo Ting was confused. Tongning was like a shameless doll as she leaned into Mo Ting's embrace. Mo Ting turned on the bedside lamp and gently stroked Tongning's back with a slight smile. Aren't you going to shower? I just want you to hug me like this. Tongning buried her head into Mo Ting's chest. I don't want to be separated from you. Didn't you refuse to let me go to England with you? I just don't want you to be too tired. You just don't want me to be too tired. In reality, both of them were well aware of this. But for Mo Ting, who had slowly turned doting on his wife into his career, how could he possibly let her stay in London on her own? But he did not tell Tongning. He simply waited to give his wife another surprise. That night, the two of them couldn't sleep. They hugged each other and chatted until dawn. Not long after, Zihao and Longjia arrived at Hyatt Regency to pick Tongning up. However, before they left, Tongning still clung onto Mo Ting. Wait for me. Mo Ting stretched out his hand and stroked Tongning's long hair. The wedding ring between his fingers shone brightly under the sunlight. After arriving at the airport, Longjia suddenly realized she had forgotten to bring her passport. However, grandfather was definitely taking a walk at this time, and there was no way she could go back the way she came. There was no time. Tongning remembered her old apartment wasn't too far from Hairue, so she asked Longjia to give Lu Che a phone call. She knew Longjia had a habit of hiding her keys. Longjia hesitated for a moment. In the end, work was more important. So she bit the bullet and gave Lu Che a phone call. Lu Che. What happened? I forgot to take my passport. Can you come to my house? The house key is hidden in the mailbox at the door. The passport should still be on the bed. Originally, Lu Che didn't have time. Mo Ting still had a lot of documents waiting for him to deliver. If it was anyone else, he would have told them to leave. But it was Long Jia. No matter how troublesome it was, he couldn't refuse it. Just you wait. Lu Che was actually more aware of the boarding time than the others, so he immediately drove over to Long Jia's apartment and successfully found the key. Actually, the furnishings in the house were pretty much the same as when Tongning left. This wasn't Lu Che's first time here, but without Long Jia around, he felt a little nervous. He pushed open the door and entered Long Jia's room. The passport was indeed on the bed, but there was also a pile of bras and panties that Long Jia hadn't had time to tidy up. Lu Che's face turned slightly red as he grabbed his passport and left. In his heart, only things that belonged to his future wife could be looked at in such a way. However, because he was in too much of a rush, Lu Che bumped into a chair, causing him to groan in pain. Even when he arrived at the airport, he was still limping. However, he pretended to be calm. Sorry for making you come all the way here. I'm fine. Lu Che took out his passport and leaned against the car door, pretending to be cool. Have a safe journey. Long Jia was in a hurry, so she didn't notice Lu Che's expression as she rushed into the airport. As for Lu Che, he waited until she was far away before lifting up his trousers to take a look. The skin on his left knee had been scraped off. What an idiot. Of course, there were even more idiots. Because the airport departure lounge was on the second floor, Tongning and Ziheo could see Lu Che's reaction from downstairs. I bet the collision was pretty bad. Ziheo teased Lu Che as he sipped on his coffee. Two blockheads bumping into each other. There's going to be a good show to watch. Tongning laughed. But wasn't love supposed to turn someone into an idiot and make them do stupid things for each other? Thinking about it, it was quite sweet. Because she was worried about bumping into fans, Tongning didn't dare to walk around casually. But to her surprise, she once again saw the tall and skinny man. It was the reporter from Huarong that bumped into Mo Ting dropping her off at the airport. Tongning's memory had always been good, especially when it came to people with bad intentions. She was able to quickly remember their gaze and analyze their intentions. This time, the man was polite as he handed her his business card. Miss Tang, do you still remember me? A reporter from Huarong, Tongning blurted out. The man was a little surprised that Tongning could accurately identify his agency without looking at his business card. But it only lasted for a moment before he recovered his smile. I didn't expect to bump into you here. Are you attending the London fashion show? Tongning nodded her head politely. Are you not here with your previous boyfriend? The man scanned Tongning's surroundings. After confirming there was no one suspicious, he let her off the hook. In that case, I'll see you in London. What's this all about? Ziheo immediately asked. What do you mean by previous boyfriend? Last time, when Hai Rui was in trouble, I accompanied Mo Ting overseas. This reporter saw me getting out of Mo Ting's car, but he had no idea it was Mo Ting, Tongning explained. I'm afraid we won't have a good week in London. Someone is going to have their eyes on us. What are you afraid of? President Mo didn't come with us. Ziheo tried to calm Tongning down. Compared to this reporter, he was more worried about Lan Shi playing some tricks. Of course, Tongning would have never imagined that a small studio like this would end up entangling with her. Has Tongning already set off for London? Lan Shi asked Luo Hao, who was pacing back and forth in Chengtian Entertainment's office. She should be on a plane right now, Luo Hao replied. Have you already made arrangements in London? This time, we've found a famous Korean paparazzi. If Tongning does anything suspicious, it will be impossible for her to escape their cameras, Luo Hao said as he twirled his fingers. He had a calm and arrogant expression on his face. He had always been the epitome of a hypocrite. Everyone knew this. Give them all the privileges they want. Until they find what we are looking for. Lan Shi yelled before turning to Luo Hao. We need to find a few more newcomers to train. I don't feel comfortable with only Hua Yuan. By the time Tongning and her entourage arrived in London, it was noon in the UK. As Tongning boarded her car, she glanced at the reporter from Huarong. This man was very strange. He was not one of the clingy paparazzi, but he exuded a dangerous aura. Tongning made sure she was on guard against him, and did not throw his business card into the bin. Tongning received a phone call from Mo Ting 10 minutes after she landed. After checking in with her husband that she was safe, she decided to check in at the hotel arranged by the agency. JK's show is in 2 days. We need to go for an interview first. Although Cheng Tian recommended you to be the opening act, we can't confirm it yet. You can make the arrangements. Tongning, what do you think of Lan Shi forgetting to give you resources? And Zihao had always wanted to know. Chapter 184. JK is a top fashion brand. Why would I reject them? But since she gave me such a great resource, I'm sure the thing she wants won't be simple. I will be careful, and Zihao replied. Hurry and get used to your jet lag. You have a lot of work ahead of you. After Zihao left, Tongning lay in bed and closed her eyes. She should have been exhausted, but her mind was becoming more and more awake. This was because they were on an international runway. It was completely different to the small shows she had previously attended. If she could really walk on JK's runway, she would definitely be able to grab hold of more international resources. But between her and Mo Ting, it seemed there was only one step between them. Perhaps it was because their minds were connected. Mo Ting unexpectedly gave her another phone call. Tongning held onto her phone and couldn't help but laugh. How did you know I was thinking about you? It was already nighttime in Beijing. After returning home and not seeing any familiar figures, Mo Ting naturally thought Tongning wasn't a noisy person, but he felt the house was cold and empty. Without her around, he wasn't used to it. Mrs. Mo, if you are really gone for a week, my body and mind will be tormented. I want to see you right now. I want to hug you and kiss you. Being in a foreign country and lying on a completely unfamiliar bed, Tongning was the one who was truly tormented. But President Mo, from tonight onwards, I have a lot of work to do. I will have to endure for now. Endure? He never intended to endure. So, as Mo Ting coaxed Tongning to sleep, he sent Lu Che a message telling him to book a plane ticket to London. However, after a quick meeting with Tongning, he immediately flew back to Beijing. He had an important banquet that night. After receiving Mo Ting's message, Lu Che wondered if it was really necessary for Mo Ting to fly for 20 hours just to see Tongning. Ting, wait for me. Soon, I will be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Hearing Tongning's words, Mo Ting's heart was moved. So what if he had to fly for 20 hours? He had already said, as long as Tongning wanted to do something, he would accompany her. Even if it was just a quick meeting was good enough. 6 p.m., Tongning and Zihao arrived at JK's show venue. The venue was located in a large church on the outskirts of London. JK's main theme for this episode was soul and rebirth. All of the costumes were mainly black and white, with black datura flowers, black and white wings, and other elements that represented darkness and light completely integrated into the costumes. It was as though the two extremes of life were pulling at each other. Now that she was at the International Fashion Show, it was rare to see such chaotic scenes. In the spacious backstage, there were only models changing and applying makeup. This made Tongning feel like she had returned to her 19-year-old self in France. While Zihao was communicating with JK, Tongning was in the backstage trying on her makeup. At such a high-class fashion show, apart from her, there were no other Asian faces. After all, there weren't many Asian models that were qualified to appear in such a high-class fashion show. Tongning stood in front of the mirror. From head to toe, she was only wearing a pair of black underwear. This was the norm for a model. At this moment, all she had to do was stretch out her arms, and someone would put on the clothes that the designer was satisfied with. JK's designer was a 40-something-year-old man. He could be considered half a Beijinger. With a full beard, his entire body was filled with an artistic aura. As he scanned Tongning from head to toe, He realized her legs were so beautiful that it was impossible to ignore them. So, with a snap of his fingers, he instructed his assistant to bring over his finale outfit for Tongning to try on. It was a deep V-black dress. The body of the dress was made from a translucent black chiffon with black web-like threads intertwining with each other. It was like a trapped soul. On her left shoulder, there was a blooming black datura flower that extended from her shoulder to her lower abdomen. The darkness. The evil. The struggle. As soon as Tongning put it on, the aura she gave off was like an evil force that had been trapped for a long time. It was about to break free and regain its freedom. This is the feeling of evil breaking free. Okay, very good. You will be the finale. What was originally supposed to be an opening had become the finale. This was completely unexpected for Tongning. But what was even more unexpected was, JK's show had to be paired up with a male model. In order to get the order right, they had to walk in advance. It was only when Tongning stepped onto the stage that she saw the man for the first time. He was a 1.9m tall supermodel. He was young, handsome, and looked to be in his early 20s. He had a pair of deep blue eyes that were filled with charisma and confidence. However, just as Tongning brushed shoulders with him, he suddenly stretched out his hand and took the opportunity to pinch Tongning's thigh. Tongning turned her head and looked at him coldly. She was trying to warn him. "Sorry, your legs are too beautiful. I really want to kiss them," the man said straightforwardly. "If you continue to act like this, I will think this is how British people are raised," Tongning warned. After speaking, she separated from the male model. The young model did not care as he continued to smile foolishly at Tongning. After walking in, Tongning stepped off the stage. And Zihao immediately handed her a jacket and helped her put it on. What just happened? What happened to that male model? Nothing. Tongning simply assumed the man was confused. Actually, at a show like this, it was common for someone to touch someone and then take the opportunity to hug someone else. Especially backstage. Anything could be seen. Tongning put on her jacket and prepared to return backstage with Zihao. But because she was very sensitive to cameras, she noticed an unusual flash of light coming from a corner. "It looks like someone is secretly taking photos," Tongning said to Zihao. Zihao glanced at Tongning and followed her gaze to the corner. He then patted her on the shoulder. "Go get changed backstage first. Leave this to me." Tongning nodded her head. She had a rough guess, so she did not immediately head backstage. Instead, she watched as Zihao walked towards a corner of the church. A moment later, a black shadow appeared from under the chair. Perhaps it was because the shadow was too professional and had become used to escaping, and Zihao did not manage to catch it. Forget it, there are plenty of people out there that spy on design secrets. It may not be directed at me. Perhaps I am overthinking things. Zihao returned to Tongning's side and shielded her. "I will be more careful. Let's go get changed first." However, they had no idea that this was one of the South Korean paparazzi that Luo Hao had sent. After escaping from the church, he held onto his camera and smiled proudly. His luck was not bad. He managed to capture a photo of Tongning flirting with a male model. The scene of them touching each other's legs was captured in high definition. It didn't take long before Luo Hao, who was back in China, received a photo from the paparazzi. This was only the first day, yet Tongning. By the time she returned because she thought she could be gilded, she would find that her name had become infamous. Chapter 185. In reality, the reporter from Huarong Studio was also present at the show. He had been searching for an artist that could make him famous. Tongning had always been known for keeping a low profile. But ever since he saw her say goodbye to a man intimately in the US, she had left a deep impression on him. So this time in London, he was confident he would be able to capture an intimate photo of her with the man and obtain evidence. Of course, he was disdainful of the paparazzi who kept snapping photos of Tongning. Material like this was only used for low-level hype. Only low-level hype would be used. What he wanted to capture was evidence of Tongning being intimate with a man. So his hotel room was located opposite Tongning's. November in London wasn't as cold as Beijing. A simple trench coat was enough to keep out the cold. On the way back to the hotel, Tongming closed her eyes and took a nap. Longjia knelt in front of her and gave her a massage. Her heart ached as she pinched her calves. Due to wearing high heels for a long time, Tongming's leg muscles were tight. As they entered the hotel's underground car park, Zihao was the first to step out of the car. As soon as he saw Emoting, dressed in a black trench coat, leaning against his sports car, he couldn't help but be stunned. Tongming had already fallen asleep. Longjia jumped out of the car and was about to wake her up when Emoting gestured for her to be quiet. He then bent over and carried Tongming out of the back seat. He let her lean firmly in his arms. "This hotel isn't safe. I will take her to the manor." And Zihao nodded his head and reminded, "You need to start work at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Come pick her up tomorrow morning. I will send the address to you." After speaking, Emoting placed Tongming in his sports car and sped away. And Zihao thought back to Emoting's words about the hotel not being safe and the paparazzi at the church today. As a manager, he didn't want to think too much about it. But he knew she was definitely capable of doing something like this. He thought back to the time he was intimate with Yun Xian, and the shadow in the shadows. He thought back to the past that he had long sealed away. He really didn't want Yun Xian's death to have anything to do with Lanxi. The Maybach sped along and stopped at a manor. As it was a private property, the security system was top-notch. Emoting unbuckled his seatbelt and looked at Tongming, at the woman that he missed every minute of separation. They only had 2 hours to see each other. Yet she chose to sleep alone. But Emoting didn't want to wake her up. He simply hugged her and hugged her. Even if it was just a whiff of her scent, he was satisfied. However, before her exhaustion from wearing high heels for a long period of time on a plane and walking on the runway had subsided, her legs suddenly cramped up. She opened her eyes in pain and bumped into Emoting's chest. Tongming was stunned. She almost thought she was dreaming. A moment later, Emoting released her from his embrace and lifted her legs onto his knees. With a pair of strong hands, he gently held on to her calves. "Why are you here?" "I'll charge it," Emoting replied. Tongming happily stretched out her arms and hugged Emoting. To her, Emoting was like air to her. "You only have 2 hours. What do you want to do?" Emoting asked as he gently patted her back. "We can only see each other for 2 hours. Why did you come?" Tongming patted him on the shoulder helplessly. "It's a 20-hour flight, and we still have to cross the ocean. As long as I can hug you for 2 seconds, these 20 hours will be worth it. So, even you know how to do things like this." Tongming turned her head and placed a kiss on Emoting's earlobe. She then moved her lips to his. However, Emoting did not move an inch. He did not have the slightest reaction. "If you don't want it, then forget it." Emoting didn't wait for Tongming to retreat as he held onto her cheeks and passionately planted a passionate kiss on her face without holding anything back. Tongming did not return to the hotel. This was what the paparazzi in England told Lan Shi and Luo Hao. The two were still in Cheng Tian's office late at night. They looked at each other and asked, "Did you find out where she went?" "We were afraid of being exposed, so we didn't dare to follow her closely. We simply noticed the lights in her room were off, so we became suspicious. Continue to keep an eye out. If you see any evidence, don't miss it." Lan Shi hung up the video call and turned to ask Luo Hao, "What do you think Tongming is doing at a time like this? What else could she be doing? If she's not in her room, apart from fooling around with a man, is there any reason for her to go out?" "There's no use talking, you need to get a photo." After seeing photos of Tongming flirting with a model, they were confident in this Korean paparazzi. The reporters from Huarong Studio also noticed something was amiss. Tongming did not return to the hotel, and Zihao and Longjia's rooms were lit up. Only Tongming's room was unresponsive. He immediately thought back to the day at the airport in the US. There were so many hotels, he might as well wait at the airport. Perhaps God would give him a pleasant surprise. Time passed slowly while they were at work, but as long as they were together, time seemed to pass by in the blink of an eye. This was a short and hard-earned 2 hours. The couple did not go anywhere. They simply kissed and hugged in the car, Not a second was wasted. There are at least 4 paparazzi staying at the hotel booked by Chung Tian. Before you returned, I spoke to the manager of the hotel and looked at the surveillance footage. These 4 people are following the same path as you. Mo Ting explained to Tongning before he left. The hotel was booked by Chung Tian, so of course he couldn't let it go. So the first thing he needed to do was to check the hotel's safety. After listening to Mo Ting, Tongning told him everything that happened at the church. I've already asked Lu Che to investigate their background. Don't be afraid. Tongning let out a gentle laugh as she shook her head. I'm not afraid. I just need to find out if they were sent by the media or by Chung Tian. Even though I'm not sure what Lan Shi's motive is. Mo Ting ran his hand through Tongning's hair without saying a word. He was secretly opening Hai Rui's doors for Tongning. It can't be anything good. Be careful. It's still early to work. Go to the manor and get some sleep. I'll send you to the airport, Tongning replied. Mo Ting held onto her shoulder and shook his head. Do you want to see how tired you look? Be a good girl. As soon as I have time, I will fly over. Tongning did not insist. She simply placed her forehead against Mo Ting's and enjoyed the last bit of intimacy. So Mo Ting came and left on his own. Hua Rong's reporter had been waiting at the airport the entire time. As soon as he saw the sunglasses wearing Mo Ting, he had no idea that Mo Ting was the man he wanted to photograph. He simply sighed. The CEO of Hai Rui was indeed a legend. Chapter 186. Lu Che sent over some information. The paparazzi following Tongning were all from South Korea. They were a very professional group. Lu Che also found out that the reason they were sent out was because they had contact with Chung Tian's artist director, Luo Hao. The answer was obvious. And Ziheo's expression did not look good. He suddenly realized a lot of things. Back then, although the incident between him and Yun Xian was exposed by Yang Jing and Luo Hao, the person that provided the evidence was the shadow that was hiding in the dark. In other words, was it Lan Shi? So many years had passed since the incident with Yun Xian. Was Lan Shi planning to use the same trick again? After taking Yun Xian's life, did she want to take Tongning's life as well? I wonder what that group of people managed to capture. I used to really like President Lan. I felt she was capable and generous like a heroine. Yet, she turned out to be such a heartless and unscrupulous person. Long Jie couldn't help but sigh. Tongning sat on the hotel bed, her heart extremely calm. No matter how ruthless Lan Shi was, it couldn't stop her determination to become an international supermodel. Lan Shi was ruthless, but she could actually be even more ruthless than Lan Shi. Seeing Tongning so quiet, and Ziheo was actually a little afraid of her. After spending so much time together, he had a certain understanding of Tongning. She was also a type of silence, but Tongning's calmness was enough to reveal her different state of mind. For example, when she was with Mo Ting, her calmness carried a sense of relaxation. For example, when she was with outsiders, her calmness carried a sense of alienation. For example, at this moment, Tongning's calmness had reached a frightening point. The more she remained silent, the more likely it was that she was thinking of a way to retaliate against Lan Shi. Lan Shi had already gotten to this point. So Tongning's future was no longer with Chung Tian. What do you plan to do? What else can I do? I'll let her take as many photos as she wants. Tongning revealed a gentle smile. She didn't seem to care. But Ziheo knew, if Lan Shi was the mantis, then Tongning would be the Oriole. Your current mission is to focus on JK's show. No matter how important anything else is, it won't be more important than the show. But Lan Shi may not be willing to let me appear on the runway. Right now, she is considering whether to use me or destroy me. Tongning's mind was as clear as ever as she lifted her head and looked into Ziheo's eyes. If you were Lan Shi, what would you choose? The problem is that she hasn't captured anything yet. Not necessarily. Tongning was referring to the incident where the male model touched her thigh. As long as Lan Shi wanted to, even if it was a small matter, with careful planning, it could destroy her reputation. Just focus on preparing for the show. As for everything else, I'll handle it, and Zihao instructed in seriousness. Tongning smiled. She trusted in Zihao, but not completely. In this world, the only person she could truly trust was Mo Ting. Tongning, I really didn't know you were in such a difficult situation. Is Lanqi following you like this partly because she's afraid Lu Che and I are just a front for you, and you are the one truly connected to Hai Rui? Tongning looked at Lanqi. After hearing this, Tongning shook her head. No. If Lanqi really suspected that I was having an affair with Hai Rui, then it wouldn't be hard for her to guess my relationship with Mo Ting. She has never believed that Mo Ting would be interested in me. Why? Because even Mo Ting didn't like her. In her eyes, Mo Ting, who didn't even like her, wouldn't have the time to play around with a small model like me. In reality, deep down, Lanqi was an arrogant person. She would not allow others to be better than her, nor would she allow others to escape her control. How arrogant! Although Longjie felt a little better after hearing Tongning's comforting words, Longjie still felt a little better. But she felt that since Tongning had tried her best to hide her relationship with Mo Ting, it wasn't time to reveal it yet. So as soon as she returned to her room, she sent Lu Che a message. After sending the message, she felt like her brain had gone numb as she leaned against the wall with a red face. Why don't we move in together? Lu Che was in the middle of handling some documents. As soon as he saw Longjie's message, he was shocked as he immediately replied with a string of question marks. This person with low EQ thought Longjie had sent the message to the wrong person. Aren't we an engaged couple? Why don't we pretend to move in together? Since you already have the keys to my house, why don't you drop by from time to time? Is your brain gone numb? Longjie. Low EQ was a type of illness. After Longjie and Zihao returned to their respective rooms, Tongning walked over to her bed and pulled back the curtains to admire the night view of London. In her heart, she thought about how Lanqi wanted to deal with her and how she would deal with Lanqi. But if Lanqi wanted her life. The next morning, Tongning was awoken by a knock on her door. She thought it was either Zihao or Longjie. But as she got changed and opened the door, she was greeted by the young male model from yesterday. I've finally found you. Beautiful oriental legs. The man stretched out his arms to give Tongning a hug, but Tongning quickly dodged. My name is Gabby. I really want to meet you. Goddess, you are very sexy. Tongning did not respond as she closed the door and gave Zihao a phone call. At a time like this, for a man like this to appear, Tongning couldn't help but connect him to the man from Chengtian. Zihao quickly dealt with the male model and returned to Tongning's room. You are currently being followed, and these random people have suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It is quite suspicious. If even Zihao had noticed, how could Tongning not know? Lanqi is really closing in on us. Not only this, Luo Hao, who was even more cunning than Lanqi, knew deep down that Tongning was not easy to deal with. If he continued to drag things out, she would definitely retaliate. So, Luo Hao did not ask for Lanqi's permission as he directly posted the photos he had in his hands online. The title was, Tongning's virtuous mask is torn as she flirts with a male model. The article even hinted that he was an insider and knew Tongning had a boyfriend. But on one hand, she was flirting with the Backview dream man, while on the other hand, she was seducing a male model overseas. He couldn't stand to watch any longer. Tongning had always been known for her innocence. Now that there was such a lustful accusation, the netizens immediately joined in the scolding war. Female celebrities were different from male celebrities. Even if a male celebrity had these scandals, they would be quickly buried. But when it came to a female celebrity, even if they were innocent, they would still be held onto by others. In fact, the media would dig up dirt on them from time to time. Lustful. No one expected this. Luo Hao's actions were too fast and too ruthless, especially when it was related to the word lustful. It was something that men loved to search for. It didn't take long before it became #1 in popularity. However, at this time Mo Ting had just stepped off the plane. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.